Great. We will call this meeting of the Historic District Commission to order at 7:01 p.m. And I will seat Goodrich and Keatsman as full members. Mr. Brady, we can call.
Town of Groton, notice of public hearing, Historic District Commission. The Historic District Commission will hold a public hearing on Tuesday, August 15, 2023 at 7 p.m. at the Groton Town Hall Annex, 134 Groton Long Point Road, and virtually via the Zoom platform to hear the following applications requesting a certificate of appropriateness. HTC 23-0002, 21 Gravel Street, Brad Carroll, applicant, owner. Privacy fence, PIN number 26191841282. HCC 23-0004, 23 West Mystic Avenue, Candace Burge, applicant, Douglas Hannah, owner, solar project, PIN number 2618052833930. HCC 23-0005, 46 Pearl Street, Sharon Reichart, owner, applicant, fence installation, PIN number 2619144235546. ACC 23-0006, 23 Library Street, Brad Horn, owner applicant, garage rehabilitation, PIN number 2619183000524. ACC 23-0007, 148 High Street, Anna Troiano, owner applicant, siding modification, PIN number 2619183133181. ACC 23-0008, 33 Pearl Street, Liza Maselli, owner applicant, mechanical installations, PIN number 2619183292291. A Zoom meeting link will be posted to the town's website meetings calendar. Applications are on file and available for public inspection during normal business hours at the Planning Department, 134 Groton Long Point Road, Groton, Connecticut, dated this 8th day of August, 2023 at Groton, Connecticut. Todd Brady, secretary.
All right, I will make a motion to waive the hearing procedures.
Goodrich, second.
All in favor?
Goodrich, aye.
Brady, aye.
Goodman, aye.
Ferguson, I. Keatsman, I.
Okay, if anyone would like to read the hearing procedures, they're over there on the, on the table in the yellow paper. Yes, we will jump right in. HTC 23-38, I've got a notice it's withdrawn, so we'll wait till consideration to discuss them.
Sounds good.
All right, HTC 23-40, this is 14 Fort Rachel Place, Brad Horn, applicant, metal roof. Brad Horn.
I think the applicant, Mike Hardesty, is going to get on in a few minutes.
Okay.
Yeah, we'll continue until he gets on.
HTC 23-41, 7 Water Street, Tim Owens, applicant. Either. What's the date?
But we got to ask, what's the date on the application? Right, come on, it's on here.
You've got a file.
For the awnings for Pizzetta.
-41. That's what I was curious.
Yeah, I don't see, it's funny, I've got the exhibits here, but not the application, the meeting packet. See the application date there?
The awnings? I think this is the first time we talked about them.
No, I was on last time too.
Yeah, no, other things were last time.
It was on, they do show up.
Pardon me?
Yeah.
We'll get back to
For other things, like you
No.
put railings, you put
No, he
mechanical stuff on top.
was on last time.
Okay. Oh, I wasn't here. All right, well, that would make sense why I don't remember.
Yeah, it's the August first. You want to just try to look and see what time when it first came in.
I will.
All right, HTC 23-0002, 21 Gravel Street, Brad Carroll. Oh, Brian, I'm sorry. Yeah. Sorry, it says Brad.
It's okay. Feel free to change it if you want. That's not a bad name. Thank you, commissioners, for your attention to my request. this
You
evening.
have to introduce.
Yeah.
yourself.
Oh, forgive me. Brian Carroll from 21 Gravel Street. And I'm here on behalf of my wife June and I. Just want to thank you, commissioners, for your attention to my request. A little bit of background. My wife June, who's from the area, and I purchased property in Mystic back in 2002. Then we purchased 21 Gravel Street in 2009. We raised a family here, paid taxes, and actually started 2 businesses in downtown Mystic. I'm here requesting a modification to my previously approved HDC 22-41 in July of last year. I was approved for a 6-foot panel privacy fence. The fence was installed in March of 22, but it became virtually impossible to erect a level 6-foot fence because the ground is irregular. Tree roots, stumps, rocks, whatever, causing the fence panels, they couldn't quite touch the ground in some spots. Some spots they could, some spots they couldn't. So what I have for you is, I believe there was some photos uploaded to the application. I'm not clear which ones you have or not for tonight, but
Yeah, why don't you come up here if you have photos and you can put.
Oh,
them on the
okay.
table and you
if you don't mind.
See them on the camera.
Oh,
Sit
great.
down here.
Appreciate it. I just have a few. So here is, can you hear me okay?
Yeah.
Thank you.
Now you have to orient yourself.
Help me with this.
Yeah, look at that up.
Oh, boy.
Use
Let's
that
look
as a
at-
reference.
Okay, thank you.
It's gonna be upside down.
Upside down. All right. So here I have,
Hang on a second.
appreciate that. So here I have a photo of our property from the street about a year ago when we first,
All right, now move your photograph. Can you
Okay.
zoom in more than that, Scott?
there you go.
Move it again.
Oh, great. Okay, here we have a photograph taken a year ago when the fence was approved by the Historic Commission. Just feel free to pass that on if you wish. And here is a photo of the property taken a couple weeks ago. Give you kind of like a year before and after. So here's the fence here and the back line and the side fence there. So before I get to the other photos. So what I like to enter into the record is a letter dated by John Luther to help explain the issue that's in front of you today. So John Luther wrote this on August 3rd of this month.
And he is.
John Luther from Luther Fence. He installed the fence this past April. So Luther Fence installed up to whom it may concern. Luther Fence installed the cedar privacy fence for the Carrolls this past spring. When we originally installed, we set the height high enough to clear the obstructions on the ground, stumps, large rocks, and the finished height was over 6 feet high, but still within the town of Groton regulations of less than 7 feet. However, due to neighbors' concerns and the Historic Commission application that stated 6 feet high, the Carrolls had the obstructions removed and we lowered the fence down to the ground level as close as possible. Due to varying terrain, which is typical for most landscapes here in New England, there are some areas where the fence may still be a couple of inches higher than the 6-foot restriction. The fence material comes stock for 6 feet high, top to bottom measurements, so would literally have to be touching the ground in all areas. 2 issues will factor in if we try to lower the fence anymore. First, the line of sight for the top of the fence will not look aesthetically pleasing if the fence goes up and down the terrain. Second, if we bury the bottom of the fence into the dirt, guarantee it will rot within a few years due to moisture. We originally recommended vinyl for this application, but that was not approved by this committee. I hope this helps explaining some of the issues we're having with this installation. Please reach out to me any further explanation on this if you need. Thank you. John Luther from Luther Fence. So basically, my intent was to install a 6-foot fence. And as John Luther explained, we made some modifications in about 2 months later. Tom Zanaridi came by to do the inspection, said a little too high, you need to bring it down. So in the month of May, I rehired Luther Fence to lower it a little bit more. So here I have a photo here showing that they were lowering it in the month of May, and they loaded about 4 inches. So this is the feller lowering it down. So that's pretty much where we're at today. So Tom came by a couple weeks ago in preparation of this, of just kind of catching up to where we are with the measurements. And we looked at parts of it. Some of it touches the ground, and he and I measured the first couple of panels, and they were like 6 feet 2 inches. So we lowered it from like 6'6" or so, 6'7" down to 6'2". And then we did a couple of spot measurements in the back, and we're around 3 inches from the ground. So it really depends on where you stick the measuring tape. If you stick the measuring tape on the front, one side of the panel, it's exactly 6 feet. But if the ground goes down, comes up, you put a measuring tape there, it might be 6'3". So Tom and I talked a couple of weeks ago. We're like, well, let's just do 6'4". It's gonna accommodate most of the parts of the ground that are uneven. And per his suggestion, he said I should come back in front of you today and ask for a couple more inches of relief. That's basically what brings me here today. This panel here will show you that many of the areas, many of these areas actually touch the ground and comply with the 6 feet. There's 29 panels in all. And of that, 20 of them touch the ground. It's about 9 of them that 3, 4, 2, 3 inches, whatever, above the time. So my intent was to get 6 feet, but as we're there, I got there as close as possible. So with Tom's suggestion, we decided to come here in front of you today. But looking around the neighborhood it's really amazing because between Gravel Street and High Street, it's only 2 streets. There's only 2 streets separating Gravel from High. And you may find it rather interesting, but here are all the homes that have a fence between 6 and 7 feet.
How many homes is that?
42 houses between Gravel Street and High Street, all inside the historic district. Pro Street number 3, Pro Street number 4, Pro Street number 8. I could go on. So I've got Pro Street, Gravel, Clift, Eldridge, High, Elm, Burroughs, Godfrey, Library, and Edgecombe. So 42 houses have somewhat of a privacy fence, full privacy fence between 6 and 7 feet. Many of them are 7, some are 6. I wasn't going to go poking around somebody's backyard with a measuring tape. I don't want to get any trouble from anybody, but I'd say about 6.5 feet is about the average height. And most of these are on the rear boundary lines and the sides. So I like to enter that into the record as well. I was surprised to see so many. In fact, number 32 Pearl is 6 feet 5 inches, and it abuts my north property line. And 19 Clift is 7 feet tall, and that butts my north property line. So I actually have 2 fences from other neighbors that I didn't erect them. Other neighbors have that are well above the 6'6". So I felt with that type of commonality around the neighborhood, I didn't think that that it was that unusual to have such a fence at 64. So that's kind of looking back, it was difficult to foresee these obstructions in the ground. So in summary, I'm requesting a modification of my last year's order to change the height from 6 to 6'4" to accommodate the remaining panels that I mentioned are 2 or 3 to 4 inches above the ground. I feel this is a reasonable request, as I've taken the extra measures last May to rehire the fence company to lower as many panels as possible. I've got a couple of letters, if you wish. The most important one, these are letters of support from people who live on Gravel and Pearl. But the most important one is from 19 Gravel, which is my next door neighbor, the Gambles. I'm writing you today in support of June and Brian Carroll. We are the next door neighbors in Mystic. We are in favor of their privacy fence. It is attractive and blends in with the landscape. I would never know it was there unless I was looking for it specifically. They have landscaped the area around the fence nicely. I've seen several fences with the same design throughout the historic area. Their fence is no way distracts from the beauty of the area. Thank you so much for your time. I have letters from people on Cliff Street, people on Gravel, people on Clift. So I'll enter those if the commission wants those for the record. So again, I think this is a reasonable request. Thank you very much. And that's all I have to say about it. Sure, I'm open for questions.
Yeah,
John. Sure.
Commissioner Goodrich, so Tom's entering told me some of the fence panels are 6'7". You keep saying
No, but-
6'4",
Well, no, was that before or after we lowered them in May?
just a couple days ago, the last time he measured it.
No, he and I measured and we were looking at 6'3", 6'2", 6'3".
Okay, so he's,
6'4"?
I can find it's an email, but I've been told they were 6'7". The number of
I-
panels at 6'7".
Don't know the 6'7" ones. I measured as many of them as I could, and 9 of them. Again, it really depends on where you stick the measuring tape. Because some of them, like the ground may go like that, so it's, I'd like to see which ones were, it was 6'7".
I wish he was here tonight. It would-
Oh, I'm
it would have
sorry.
helped.
No, I didn't see any at 6'7" when I did my walk around. He and I walked around to about 2/3 of the fence. Now, he might have come back on his own, and that's perfectly fine. But when he and I did our walkthrough, it looked like, because I said to him, what do you think we should do? He said, 6'4" should cover it. So that's kind of what got me to 6'4". If the commissioner would like 6'7", that's fine. I'll go for 6'7" if that's what you think. is
Well, I think
appropriate.
it's different, right, between 6'4" and 6'7".
Yeah,
It's-
yeah,
it's
6'4"
Wise, you're talking about a higher percentage. And
Yeah,
let's make sure all the facts are being presented.
No, that's fair. I didn't see any that was 6'7". I measured them when Tom and I did our walk around. Biggest we found was 6'3", actually. That's why we thought an extra inch would be okay.
I have another question. So,
Sure.
you're supposed to post a sign for public notice. Are you aware of that?
I did.
Okay. It's on your front door, sir. How many
Yeah.
feet between?
Well, what I did is
Hang on,
I just got it
between the-
Friday.
The
No,
sidewalk.
no, sure.
and
I got
front
that
door. It's
Friday.
illegible.
Well, I'm pretty far from the street.
You are.
and-
And it's supposed to be posted on the street. Can I?
Oh, I wasn't aware of that. I wasn't aware of that. I got the notice from Sue on Friday.
Okay,
Sue called me up, Sue from the town hall. Called me up and said, you need to pick up something. That's okay. So I showed up about 3:00 in the afternoon. She gave me the sign and she said, put it on your front door. I went,
Good.
okay.
the other thing, it's supposed to be posted 15 days before this meeting, so I got it on Friday.
I got, Sue called me on Friday. I wasn't aware of it. Sue called me on Friday and said, please come by and pick up your,
For once more, if she called you on Friday. Put it up front. Needs to be better instructions to staff.
It's a one time I'll at staff. I mean, it's
Yeah.
a contentious issue. We don't have a sign that's legible for, hang on, for a public notice. And it's not even following our requirements 15 days before, so I'm just,
I agree. I'm just,
Okay.
all I'm saying is that. We need to educate staff. If he was told. And he says that.
yeah, and if you notice the
I'm not
door,
saying It's right or wrong. I'm saying.
I see your point, and that's why I'm bringing it up. I mean, like I said, you can't read it from the street, and it's supposed to be a public notice. The public knows to come to this.
I'm sorry, I did it as I was instructed. And I have a screen in the door. It wouldn't stick to the screen. So I put it, and I figured that was a good spot because I'm eye level to the street. It was the best spot to see it. So that's,
Yeah, it's about 20 feet. I know what it is and I can't read it.
believe me, there were people walking up to it. I assure you. My front door ring,
Do we know
got
why-
people
do we know why
walking
that
up.
happened? Why staff instructed him? Can we find out?
And
I'm sorry, I didn't hear what John asked you.
Why he wasn't given proper instructions by town
Oh,
staff,
sure,
but like,
got
I
it.
think
I didn't
there's an
hear
answer to
I
that.
didn't interrupt. That's nice.
You're fine. As soon as she called me, I came. So I didn't delay. If you want these pictures, they're from other parts of Gravel Street, other homes. This is 7-foot fence that kind of looks a little bit like mine. That's from 31. I'm sorry, that's 15 Gravel Street.
We'll take,
Oh, I'm sorry.
yeah, we'll take whatever you want.
Okay, sure. These are from 15 Gravel Street. So that's gives you an idea of, we're not alone. Oh, forgive me.
These are all in the.
Some of them were uploaded in the application. I decided just to bring them anyways. Sure.
What are those? That's something.
Well, these are some other photographs that aren't necessarily useful at this time. So if the commission would like them, that's easy to discuss later.
So it's not something you're submitting?
No.
For the application?
No. Unless you have more. Q&A, that's it.
Yeah. Who else have a question?
Yeah, I do. I have some comments. I was at the one where this was approved as an observer. Wasn't on the committee yet. And I just want to share a little bit of my thought process on your application. Not only for you, Brian, but for some of the people in the audience that I think are going to speak therefore against it. So that they can maybe help inform my understanding of what we're looking at in their comments. So I thought I could share a little bit what I'm thinking about, what's happening. You pointed out the date that it was originally approved. And then on February 7th, Ruth Crocker, who was in the audience, came to an HTC hearing and made some comments about how the fence negatively affected her property. And a couple days after that, I went to see Ruth to understand it from, her side of the fence. And it's significant what happened on her side of the fence. I mean, I feel compelled to acknowledge that, it's super upsetting to her. And I understand why. That said, I think you're requesting a modification to a COA that isn't necessary. I think the original COA you've complied with. A 6-foot fence does not mean it's 6 feet off the ground. I've also talked to Luther Fencing. I've looked at all the fences. You've probably looked and done some just online research about fence building. And it turns out that a 6-foot fence is a nominal size. They make the panels that you put in between the posts. They make those in factories. And the distance between the top and the bottom of the panel is 6 feet. And then when they install them, they put the post in, they generally always make them vertical. And they don't count the height of the filial. You've got filials, and I don't know if they're in the measurements, but by filial, I mean a little cap on the post.
Finials.
Anything that goes above the posts don't count, I guess, for 6 feet. And also, they all want to make since it's a rectangular thing with vertical posts, they also don't want to touch the ground because it rots, and as you pointed out. And if the ground isn't perfectly level, which it isn't around here, perfectly flat, there's bound to be some gaps. So the actual installed fence can be a few inches higher than the actual fence, than the 6 feet dimension. In other words, I'm convinced the 6 feet refers to the panel height and not the height of the fence. So I think your application approved a 6-foot nominal fence, as long as it was installed, in a customary, regular, professional manner. And I believe your fence was installed that way. So I'm going to reject I'm going to deny your application. And you could kind of ask me, well, why am I going to do that? Because it doesn't matter if I deny it. You get if I deny it, what I'm thinking you should do is say, I'm in compliance. I think you're in compliance. Now, I'm the only one that thinks that. Maybe other commissioners think that or not. But I would say all the other fences we've ever approved, and you've looked in the history, have approved nominal fences with reasonable installations. So I think would be wildly inconsistent with our earlier rulings. And we have a ruling this afternoon, coming up later today on a fence for 48 inches. And I think if the same things will apply, it's going to be 48 inches plus a little bit because of the way fences get installed. And I think we're getting into a really sticky area if we're going to specify that kind of detail around height above uneven ground in New England. So you also, I would point out from my position, have the possibility to think this over. And anytime you want to continue the hearing to another time, like 2 weeks from now, you can do that. If I were you, I might consider doing that either right now or anytime during tonight's proceedings and say, oh, I want to think about what I've said, because I think you want to maybe consult with other advisors on, you know, if you should fight the compliance fight with the existing thing or just try to push this through. So you don't have to have the vote tonight. You have several, I don't know how many, 65 days after the application to get the resolution out. But I think you're okay with or without.
I welcome that viewpoint. I came from the motivation of just Tom Zannarini saying, well, you really should, there's an ambiguity between what the town says and the insurance commission's historic commission says, so maybe ask for some relief and then see. That's, I'm kind of here because Tom said,
Right.
give it a shot, because believe me, this is not the first thing I wanted to do tonight.
Do you have any questions for my logic, or what do you, or anything you want to add to what I'm saying?
I welcome that perspective. I'm trying to be a good resident, just trying to be in compliance the best I can. So I happen to agree with you. But I also want to make sure that an inspector doesn't knock on my door and say, I'm 6'6", 6'4", 6'2", and then I'm back here again. So I'm just a bit confused on that.
I did forget to say something. I'm
frankly.
sorry. Can I just, I'll finish my, I
Sure.
skipped over another point I wanted to make, Brian.
Sure.
And the point was acknowledging that I think it was a negative impact on the neighbor.
Mhm.
And I have the impression that they would be willing to contribute significantly to a modification of the fence that would improve their view. And that's way beyond my, our purview or anything, but I would really like it if you would consider at least talking about that, because I also have the theory or the sense that neighbors with animosity is a bad thing, right? And if you can start down the road of repairing that, that would be good. And maybe it's impossible because a lot of, water's, it's maybe baked in. I don't know. I hope not. So,
Fair request.
okay,
Thank you.
that's all I've got.
So, Ed,
Yes, sir.
you're in essence, you're adopting this posture on the supposition that of the, what do you say, 42 fences or so?
Mhm.
Probably if you went out and measured all these 42 fences, a good number of them are not at what might otherwise be considered the approval height from the historic district commission.
Every 6 foot
And like
fence,
the-
everybody that came in and said a 6 foot fence, if it's a manufactured fence, they're all above 6 feet. Every one of them. I have an illustration I drew to help make me think of this. I'm happy to put it underneath the thing and show all you guys. It's impossible to be under 6 feet if you install the factory made 6 foot fence. In my opinion.
No, you're great.
So.
So I have a couple points to your point. I mean, I think a lot of people showed up tonight and they deserve.
Sorry to cut you off. I just want to make sure we leave deliberation for that.
Sure, sure.
So it's questions between.
Yeah, and fair enough. I just want to say, I think a lot of people have come out to speak tonight. They have the right to speak. That
Sure.
was, and that we can take it up on
I just
deliberation.
want to make sure we don't end up.
Yeah, I do. I have some points, to Ted's points, which I think are
Yeah,
correct,
no,
and some
I-
which I'd like to not offer a alternate
Yeah.
position on. All right.
I'm sorry, I spoke out of turn, I think, a little bit, Eric, and I apologize for that.
That's all right.
It was
I
because
just want to make sure we.
I know, it sounded like deliberation and it was, but I wanted to share my train of thought with the broader audience. So when they get up to speak, they can correct me if they don't like what I was.
Do you have anything that's a little better?
I don't. I've already talked about it.
All right.
My feelings on the postings, and I think that's the only. thing.
Fair enough. Fair enough. Thank you.
Do you have anything else?
Guess I'm a little question. Can I ask a question? Is this something that I should wait until you deliberate, or wait until we're just withdrawing that at this moment? Or I guess I'm confused on next steps because of, I have to appeal to the town zoning side, because I might end up having to come back again if the zoning says I need to come back. So I'm just, because the zoning says 7 feet. You are correct. You are 100% correct. The panels are 6, the lives are regular. The town allows up to 7. I actually lowered it 4 or 5 on my own, just to try to make a little more peace with the neighbors. And I think, I don't know what to do next.
If we vote and we vote no,
Mhm.
you can appeal the decision. 15 minutes.
Okay,
If we vote yes, you move on, the fence stays as it is, and that's it.
Okay.
If you withdraw it. It sounds like from what I'm understanding, the commission and town staff. Are taking two different paths that. It's an issue that we need to resolve. So we can't. We didn't instruct him to go out and knock on your door or measure your fence. Quite frankly, we're a little confused why he did, but nevertheless. It's our job as the commission to take enforcement action, which we haven't gotten there. So we have not made a decision to enforce your fence yet. He, for whatever reason, seems to be doing so, and we will be compelled to do so eventually. So if you withdraw it, you don't have any answer. And this is going to continue. So my,
Nancy, comment on that? No. Or John wants to go.
No, go ahead. I was gonna follow up with the question you asked, but you go ahead first.
My sense is that the zoning officer doesn't know if it's in compliance or not. And has asked us to decide if it is. So I'm telling you, in my opinion, it isn't. So I don't think you've got an enforcement against.
It is in compliance or it is not.
I don't think the zoning officer knows. I think he wants us to decide, and that's what we're doing here. That's why I gave my opinion of it's in compliance. If the zoning, if it's out of compliance, please inform me of that and tell me how would he make it in compliance?
again, I think you're 2 steps down where this needs to go.
Okay.
I think a vote needs to be made tonight. Assuming you wish to proceed. What we need to make tonight, whether it's acceptable to be 6 foot or 6 foot. If that determines that, if not, Tom has to come back to us and ask us whether it's in compliance or not in compliance. That whole issue we can do. Because I don't disagree.
I don't
But
think we should vote on it because I think that means everybody in the future that says they have a 6-foot fence has to actually figure out how high the fence is going to be.
I think that's something we would need to hold for deliberation at this point, let the public speak. In all fairness, we're deliberating it now. Now's not the time for deliberation.
All right.
Mr. Carl, I'm gonna ask a question, which I hope
Sure.
is not inappropriate. And this is a resident of Mystic, not a
Sure.
state commissioner.
Sure.
Would you consider sitting down with Ms. Crawford, see if you guys can work something out that would make you both happy?
You know, I think,
That's what I would do with my neighbor, and that's what I'm asking.
oh, I understand. I understand. I wanted to attend this meeting and keep with the facts of the fence. I think that I've been a neighbor for 10 years and I think I'm at the point where privacy is very important to me.
Okay.
And I think that's important. But I want to stick with the facts of the fence.
Fair enough.
I do think that we need to be careful because our job as a commission is to regulate the district as a whole.
That will
not to
make, that will
regulate-
have zero impact on my decision. I was just asking.
Right.
As a
So I think-
resident to resident.
We need to not be in
Yeah.
the position which we have been in before. In the past 5 years that I've been on this, or 4 years, wherever it's been, where we've gotten.
Right.
Issues between neighbors. So I think
Fair enough,
the issue for us is whether it impacts the district.
fair enough. Like I said, it'll have zero impact on my decision, just the question I was asking.
Fair enough. Thank you. Fair. Reasonable question. Yeah, sure.
Do you have anything else?
No, Todd, Bill, is there anything that you have questions for me? Okay. So I guess I'm gonna wait until
Later in the meeting.
later in the meeting and then I'm sorry, I do happen to agree with Ted. And I'm just trying to understand, is this something that voted or should I just take it up later or do appeal if you don't see things the way Ted and I see them all? I mean, I'm a little confused because Ted, we could be voting to not approve the extra inches or we could be voting to just say we're not going to vote. I'm just confused.
We'll vote on whatever motion is made.
At the time.
Okay,
That's
I see. Okay. Then I'll wait, thank you.
When the time comes.
Procedurally, though, he can decide to postpone, he can decide to continue this till 2 weeks from now if he wishes to.
Yeah, I think that's a decision that we need to make. on
Which
your
you
own.
can make if you feel like you want to think it over more. Or you want to ask, you know,
What am I? Yeah.
because I don't know if he has heard the logic I just laid out for him, or if he wants to talk to the zoning officer over again with this new interpretation.
Well,
Or if he wants to talk to his lawyer about, I think we got a good COA and we're gonna push back on any town.
I don't think it's our place to advise anybody that. I'm sorry.
No, I'm not, no, I was asked the question, I didn't tell him what to do.
Just hold on a second. The town zoning official, I'm Dan Reed, John Burt, town manager,
Yes,
and the town attorney waited,
what did they say?
that he needs to come tonight and ask for a modification.
I don't think they understand what 6-foot fence means.
They're the attorneys. I think they can make that decision.
I don't.
Okay.
I don't think they've looked at fence construction. I think we're closer to it than they are. But that's my opinion. And you see, what I'm afraid of is you'll walk the town into a position it's untenable. And they're gonna lose, and that's not what they want to do. I'm trying to protect the town here. So the town, I think, is making a mistake if you want to go down that road, but that's my opinion.
Fair enough. Mr. Burt's exact words were the town attorney is very familiar with the situation. I think we have to trust that. That's what they pay the town attorney a lot of money to do.
All right, well, let me repeat, I don't think they've heard my view of the case, and I think if they've heard that, they may change their mind. Maybe not, maybe yes. I think we could look at all the past fences we've done, they're all over the type we approved. I think we're opening ourselves up to say anybody that wants to complain about anybody's fence can. And we're gonna have another one tonight, that's a 48-inch application that we're gonna now, I guess we'll write in modifications to all of them saying plus some construction tolerance. Sure. So
If I may,
So why not?
exactly.
because why?
And Ted, we've had this conversation before. We can't base the past on things. So there's vinyl that exists in the historic commission that we don't approve anymore because of the handbook that we don't approve it, but we don't make those people tear it down. So as we've discussed, every application stands on its own. We can't say there's 10 other fences or there's this vinyl and we allowed this window back then or, whatever. That's we've had this conversation ad nauseum and as I see your point, I think we've all can understand that every application is going to stand on its own.
All right, that's fine. It's up to you, Mr. Carroll. What you want.
We're gonna ask for statements in support and opposing your application. We'll circle back.
Okay, how about that? Thank you very much.
Thank you.
Okay. We're gonna ask for statements in support of the application first, then statements against the application or in opposition to the application. So that everyone's clear, there's just a couple comments I want to make relative to how we're going to handle this, because I think it's going to go on for a little while. So in both ways. I just want to be clear that the job of the commission is to preserve the district as a whole. It's not to intervene in between neighborly disputes. So when you comment, whether you're commenting for or against, it's your view from the district, it's your view as a resident, it's your view as someone who cares about the community. It's not your view from someone's yard. So I appreciate that. I understand that. And I realize what you're going through, but that needs to be just made clear. Secondly, just in regards to the comment that was made about the mistake. I was not here when the vote was made, and I made the comment about a mistake being made. The mistake at the time was that staff did not instruct the commission that's in regards to what should be presented with the application, which was photographs of the area. That being said, we can't go back and change that. The fact that photographs weren't submitted doesn't void or make the application or certificate of appropriateness voidable, and doesn't in any way invalidate the decision that the commission made that night. So if you could just leave those two things out of any discussion, it would save time and would save your own energy. That's all. So that being said, I'll open it up to comments supporting the application. Come on, just state your name and address for the record.
Yeah, that's it.
That one's on.
Renee Madison, I'm 27 Gravel Street. So I support the application. I listening to what Todd, is it Ted? I'm sorry, was saying here, and it sounds very reasonable. I agree that he's in compliance based on these facts, and he really should probably withdraw. I'm concerned that, as you pointed out, Eric, there is issues where we've got neighbors concerns, and we have to separate the facts between those. I'm not saying that that doesn't weigh into this, but the fact is he has a privacy fence up, he's in compliance, period. And then he has to work out whatever he's going to with the, you know, whoever's the other neighbors that have concerns. Because I'm not sure, again, if the town attorney or the town managers, I've seen, I'm not on social media, but I've seen some horrible posts submitted from all over the place about negativity about the Carols and this fence. And it's just got to stop. It's cyberbullying as far as I'm concerned. And I don't know if they've been reached out to by some of these people and they're being influenced. But as you said, the bottom line is it's what the district can approve. And that is that this fence is in compliance and they should be able to be, you know, keep the fence the way it is and, you know, move forward from that. And whatever the Carols decide to, you know, work with on the neighbors, that's their business. It doesn't belong here. So I just feel very strongly we have to separate out the facts. Thank you.
Anyone else in support?
Got to ask if anyone else they can hear us, to raise their hand, right? Yeah. We ask out loud.
No. Yeah, does anyone in the virtual audience have anything to say in support of the application? If so, raise your hand. The virtual hand. No. Okay, we'll go back. Anyone in opposition?
Oh,
Wait, I'm sorry.
Well, want to take them?
Just, can you promote him and just ask him? to
Loud.
for or against?
Louder.
I guess it's.
Kathy.
Parker, are you for or against?
I'm against the fence.
Okay,
okay, hang on then.
Hold.
You're trying to postpone people in the audience speaking.
no,
No.
I'm just trying to go through.
We're trying to go to the people here first.
Do you want to go first? Right. Yeah.
Marie Wiley, 18 Hillside Ave. As somebody who's been down here my whole life, and I walk downtown every single day on Pearl Street, I was miffed that this was even on the books that you could erect a fence. I know I heard there's a whole bunch of other fences, but all those other fences don't take away from my quiet enjoyment of being able to walk along Pearl Street and look out at the water. So the fence pops up and no more views whatsoever. And of interest, Groton Long Point has an ordinance that you guys might consider for the waterfront folks, that they can't put up more than a 4-foot high fence. So it doesn't take away everybody else's, the people on the back street who have always traditionally seen the water. You know, if you did that, then they would still continue to be able to see the water. So this is coming from a different perspective as somebody who walks downtown every day. So there we go.
Judy, can I just get you to sign?
I'm sorry.
You can just sign that.
Oh, this one.
An address, please.
Sure. I signed that one over there.
Huh?
I signed that one
I
over
believe
there.
that's for new business.
It is.
Okay.
We weren't
Yeah.
clear.
Sorry
Sorry,
about that.
Marie.
All good. If you can just put down your name, and address, please.
Okay, anyone else here against?
28 Pearl Street.
Ruth, are you gonna want to show pictures?
Some
Go sit up
pictures.
here. Yeah.
What?
Yeah. just wanna sit down.
If you're showing pictures.
Right up
sit
here,
in
Ruth,
this chair.
so that we can use the camera to
Thank
look at
you.
your pictures.
I'm the I'm the abutting property of 21 Gravel Street. And so I just wanted to, let's see. Turn it around. Oh, this way?
Yeah.
Okay. Okay.
Takes some getting used to.
Wrapped in your head. Okay. Can you see that? Okay, this was, as I said, on the abutting property of 21 Gravel Street. And this was my view before the fence went up. And if you see those little orange tags that are in the middle of this photo. Where is it? Wait a second. Last year, last summer, I saw those, I saw the survey done. I saw the tags from the survey. And I wondered if the neighbors, the Carrolls were going to put up a fence. And I actually put a note on their door asking them because they weren't there at the time. And I never received an answer. And actually, shortly after that, which was right at the time when this, the first meetings were about this, my granddaughter was born out in California and my son had COVID and the 4-year-old child had COVID. I went to California and I was there for a while, taking care of the family. And so during that time, I had no idea because I had no notification that anything was going to happen like this. I had no idea that this was happening. And then I found out not until January when I saw the fence begun to be built by Luther Fence. I saw one guy out there hacking at the soil and putting up fence posts and complaining about how he had no help to dig out the bushes and roots of the privets. And so this is as the fence was beginning to go up, I realized that this was very serious. I sent an email to the Carrolls asking what was going on, and I never received a response. Then shortly after that, you know, I had the full brunt of the fence here. And this is what we have today. Is a very high fence with no possibility of seeing anything or and it's changed the whole character of my yard. I also at that time came to a meeting and it was suggested that I look back at the previous meetings on YouTube, and I did that, and I realized that when the presentation was made for the approval, that it was made by Mark Como, the architect, and he only had a site plan. He had no photographs, as you said, and no one had made a visit out there to see what the impact might be. And he also waved his hand over my property and said, and this Airbnb creates noise and disturbance. And I am not an Airbnb. I've lived there for 38 years. I've never rented my house, my barn, or my car. So anyway, so one of the things I wanted to make a point about tonight is, you know, the importance of notification. And I did see the little signs up for this present meeting, and it would be good if they were a lot closer to the road. But I think that had I known about the meeting last year, I would have had a chance to, you know, give my side of the story here and talk about what's happening to my property. So now that the fence is built, I also looked behind, and, you know, it's built very close to the property line. There's the little boundary. You can see that little orange thing there. My yard really feels like a prison yard, and it's even affected the airflow. But okay, so the fence is built, and then I asked, okay, it seemed like it was very tall. And so I said, is it going to be measured? And I was told that someone would come out and measure it, the zoning enforcement official. And after several months, there was no word about the measuring. So I contacted Tom Zanarini and basically didn't get very much of a response. And finally, we contacted John Burt, and John Burt, after that, the fence, he said someone would be out to measure it and it would be in compliance. And ultimately, I wondered if it was going to be measured from my side, because after the note that I think was mentioned earlier, that the fence was, somewhere between 6'2" and 6'4". We had measured it ourselves on our side, and it was significantly taller than that. So I contacted Tom again, and he said that he recommended that we measure it ourselves and bring it to this meeting, which seemed sort of odd. I mean, why would you trust my measurement of the fence? So, but we did. We went out and measured it, and these are some of the measurements we have along our boundary. It's significantly taller than 6'4". There are places along the line there.
Can you read the measurements off the story?
Okay.
Maybe I found it.
The previous picture shows that it's 81 inches at one point.
9.
Okay, so there's 72 inches and 6 feet, so that's 11 inches over. Yeah, 6'9". Okay, thank you.
That was like 6'8" from here.
This is 6'8", and it's okay. And there's one last measurement here, almost down to 76. And it's also not level. So from if you look out a window from inside my barn, you can see it's a little. You might think you're looking at white elephants. But I think the most important point I want to make about this is the fact that I am not an Airbnb. And I don't have loud parties. I don't have parties with loud music. And I feel like I've been portrayed as some gnarly neighbor who is, cannot be tolerated. I will say that the neighbor to our south of both of us does have an Airbnb, and it's a big house and it has large roofs. And because the wind blows from the south, you can hear everything. I can even hear conversations that they're having over there. It's just because of the wind, the way the wind blows. And she does have a large fire pit, and that's been a problem for all of us for years. And actually that Airbnb, I think, started about 10 years ago. So I know it's been a problem for the Carrolls, and it's been a big problem for me too, but there doesn't seem to be much that can be done about it. And I just, finally, I just wanted, I've had a lot of support from people, but I wanted to read one particular letter from someone who was formerly a commissioner on this board. And she sent this letter to you all, so I know that you've probably gotten it, but I wanted to read it just to have it on the record. To the Historic District Commissioners, I'm writing in support of Ruth Proctor's opposition to the fence that was erected along the boundary of her property by the neighbors at 21 Gravel Street. And I'll skip the part about the notification. The application to increase the height of the fence should be denied, and the applicant should be required to remove the fence constructed in violation of the HDC order. Given the vocal and very public protests over the fence, it is frankly shocking that the applicant would build a fence in clear violation of the HDC order and then seek an after-the-fact approval of their wrongdoing. Setting aside the question of whether the fence should have been approved to begin with, to now approve a fence higher than that allowed by the original order would reward violations of HDC orders, encourage other applicants to follow suit, undermine HDC authority, and most importantly, drip by drip, adversely impact on the historic nature of Mystic. Applicants should be held accountable for violations of orders. When the fence was first approved, a 6-foot limit was set for a reason. Orders 1, denying the application to increase the height of the fence and ordering the applicant to tear down that fence are entirely warranted and will bring the HDC back to square one with this applicant, giving the HDC an opportunity to reconsider its original decision. Some commissioners have publicly acknowledged that the original decision was based on an application that was missing much of the minimum information required to be provided as set forth on the table, on page 1-7 of the HDC district handbook, and that it may not have been approved had all the required information been provided. At the very least, by reconsidering the original decision, neighbors would have had a real opportunity to be heard, something that they and Ruth Crocker have been denied. I truly hope this travesty can be corrected. Thank you for your consideration. And this is from Donna Brewer, former HDC commissioner. So this has been a really curious journey for me. I mean, along with what one of the supporters said about things going around on social media, I've also been told that I have no right to a view. And I've also been told that I'm too bossy and assertive and sorry, you're stuck with this fence, etc. And all I want to tell you is that if you're going to force this fence on me, at least make these people comply with what they're supposed to do. I deeply appreciate Mystic. And I think what the Historic District Commission has tried to do over the years, actually to preserve and protect a sense of history while allowing us to have our still contemporary lifestyle has been very good. I think they're doing good work, but this for me is a travesty. It is a travesty. I don't know how I'm going to continue to live with this fence.
Is it possible to ask speakers questions?
Actually, it's 8 o'clock.
Oh, yeah.
Yeah.
Right. So it's not possible to ask one?
No.
Do you want to recess for 5 to 10 minutes?
Yeah. I will.
Okay.
All
right.
Thanks, John.
You're welcome. No, that's when my coach was back with something and that was for the mice. I actually think that
I've never done.
I think we should.
I'm just wondering. Please.
Especially since it, well, I don't know, it hasn't expressed his opinion, so it gives us the right to go to executive session. I don't know if we want to look if we're doing stuff behind the scenes off.
I wouldn't be opposed to doing it, limiting it to 5, but.
Also, you have an member, Council Panel, they want to speak, but if you want to let them, so they can, they're about the executive members, so. I don't think it's here or not.
No, if they want to speak, they can speak. The rest of it. What's, I know that. I know it's correct. I just wanted to use this. I'm using.
Yeah. I know, I'm still waiting to hear back from Chris on the hood. Well, I know we talked, I don't know. Peter's not doing it, you know, it's a nice way. It's just like, it's very close. Go ahead and do I think the impression should be, and I haven't talked to those about it. I'm at a part of not watching.
Deal with everything, yeah.
Deal with
Yeah.
hold this, say. We're gonna-
Yeah.
Okay. Wondering.
So,
Thanks for reminding me.
No worries. And-
all right. You ready?
Yeah.
Yeah, that fire over by the railroad tracks.
We're gonna jump back in. So I'll call this meeting
And I
back to
think
order at
policies are
8:02. Not sure you ever stopped.
I did.
Oh. But normally it goes beep. I didn't hear the beep. Oh, good.
So we just have to
Yeah.
ask if there's any more.
Which is, yeah. So.
Any others against, right?
We'll order coffee at midnight.
Yeah, I don't think it's,
What do you order coffee at midnight? Don't worry about it.
well, you don't have to work at 6 AM. Anyways, I'm sorry. What time do you get? 7? Yeah. Yeah. All right, we'll jump back in. So we'll continue to take comments against the application. I believe there was some online.
Are there
So-
any more in-house? Are there any more people in-house that would like to speak against?
All right, so then we'll go
Okay, so now
online.
we'll go online.
What was the name? I'm sorry, of the person. Nancy?
Nancy. And let's allow Nancy to talk first.
Oh, Kathy.
Oh, Kathy Parker.
Oh, yeah.
Yeah, it's alphabetic. But yeah, it's alphabetical by first name. So,
Yeah, it's the K, Kathy with the K.
Yeah,
Yeah, scroll down. Right there. Kathy, did you want to speak? Kathy Parker? You have to raise your
Down,
hand if you
down.
don't.
keep going. Keep going.
Keep going.
2 more.
She's got to raise.
So we got, looks like 2 attendees with their hands raised.
Can you scroll the top again?
No, she's down there.
I know, they raised her hand.
There she
There you
is.
All right.
Allow Kathy.
All right, Kathy, you're muted.
Oh, you got it.
Okay, I support Ruth Crocker's
Sorry,
position.
Name and address for the record.
Catherine Parker, 2 Brandon Lane, Mystic. So I support Ruth Crocker's objections to the fence. It doesn't look like the pictures of the fences that he showed that were picket fences that you could see through. And I think a 6-foot fence means below 6 feet. You should buy a 5-foot fence if you're going to install a 6-foot fence. That other argument doesn't make any sense to me, and it's clearly something you can't see through that's double the size of the other fence and out of bounds of what would be considered proper downtown. It blocks people's views and it ruins other people's property. And I think the fence should be taken down. Thank you.
Thank you. Mary Jane. Good.
See a panelist.
Does anyone else in the virtual audience have anything to say? For this application? All right, scroll down. Janet?
Hi, can you hear me?
Yep. Just name and address for the record.
My name is Janet Keffer, and I'm actually in Griswold on George Palmer Road. I like coming to Mystic, and Mystic is known for its water views. And I think that taking away that view from individuals and from the community in general when they're walking down the street or driving by just decreases the property values and decreases the enjoyment of the entire community. This isn't just about one person. It is about Mystic as a community in making decisions that contribute to the traditional feel of that particular town and waterway. So I am certainly in support of Ruth Crocker and either removing the fence or at least lowering the fence in the areas where it is blocking the view of the water so that the view can be seen by the street and by the neighbors. Thank you.
Thank you. Yeah. Martha?
Hi, my name is Martha Sandifer, and while I am not a resident of Mystic, I am a resident of Connecticut. I have family and friends along the shoreline, and I do want to reiterate what the past two speakers have said. The enjoyment of the coast is for many residents of Connecticut, not just the folks who live there, and I support Ruth Crocker's work against the fence, and don't need to take up any more of your time. People have said it better than I.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Michael?
It's actually Marilyn. I'm on Michael's iPad. My name is Marilyn McShane, and I've known, excuse me just a minute, Michael, can you get?
Marilyn, can we get your address too, please?
Yes, I'm actually a Richmond resident, Rhode Island, but I grew up and lived for many years in Stonington. I've known Ruth Crocker since we were 14 years old. And I can tell you, never have I known Ruth Crocker to be running an Airbnb, nor have I ever known her to host loud, wild parties. I hard time even knowing if she's home because of the quietness. And at times I'm appalled at the noise coming from neighboring houses, and especially with the sound traveling with the wind coming from the southerly direction. Ruth has always lived an artist's life, one of reading, one of writing, gardening, contemplation, a life of community service, volunteering, serving on numerous committees and boards in her beloved Mystic. We were raised by members of the greatest generation who instilled in us really the attributes of honesty and integrity and the knowledge of right versus wrong. We were taught to obey the laws and to embrace the truth and stand up for what we knew to be right. We were taught to look after each other, to show respect for one another, to treat each other as we would want to be treated. We were impressed on us, especially, was the value of our word and how words lose their value when actions don't match. I can tell you one thing, Ruth's ancestors helped to build that town of Mystic. Their hearts and souls are in the very fabric of this historical place that's dear to all of us that grew up in and around Mystic. I ask you to really search your souls and stand up for what's right in regard to permits and structures built without compliance, and to understand what a friend Ruth Crocker is to the town of Mystic. She is a person of service, someone who would give the shirt off her back for any one of those people living in Mystic. And all she's asking for is to be listened to and to be given a fair shake, to understand her side. Thank you.
Thank you. You gotta remove the top. Just remove the top. Yep. Oh. Mary Jane. Yeah.
Yes, I'm here. Again, Mary Jane Reisner. Can you hear me?
Yep, just address for the record.
12 Old Colony Road, North Stonington. And I just want to speak to the manner in which this application was in place. I'm a transplanted person from New Jersey. I moved to Connecticut 32 years ago. Prior to that, I lived in a small town called Dumont, New Jersey, and I served on the town council. And whenever there was something coming up that the zoning board, because there was no historical commission down there, the notices had to go out by mail to each of the adjoining properties that were perhaps going to be impacted. Now,
Mary
I
Jane,
understand.
I'm sorry
Yes.
I'm sorry to cut you off, but just out of respect for people here that are on other applications, with regards to the notice and how the application procedure is in the Historic District Commission, if you want to come back to one of our other hearings and talk about that during public communications, you're more than welcome to. But if you could just please keep it to this and not to the process.
Okay, well, basically, as I understand it, the notice in the newspaper was placed in the news at a time when Ruth was out of town. Had she gotten some other notification of the meeting about this fence was going to be proposed, I believe she would have been there because she's a very staunch, intelligent woman who applies herself to what's going on around her. And I think that it's really an unfair situation that a lot of things transpired without her knowledge. And then she was told, number one, well, you can't do anything about it. And number two, you're too pushy and too aggressive. There's no such thing as being too pushy or too aggressive when you're trying to right a wrong. And I think that this fence needs to be addressed according to the law. And 6'4" is non-compliance. 6'3" is non-compliance. There's a very easy solution. You take a saw and you cut down those panels and put another piece of wood across the top to hold them together so that then it becomes in compliance. And that lattice work on top should not be included. You're saying that those panels are 6 feet manufactured in a factory, and anything you put above those panels increases the height of the fence. Therefore, that fence is in non-compliance and it should be removed. Perhaps another one can be put in place that actually is in compliance, say 4 foot with a 1 foot lattice on top, if that's your choice. And that brings it down to 5 feet. And that also stops infringing on your neighbor's view. I hope you'll think hard and long on my comments. Thank you very much.
Thank you. Deborah?
My name is Deborah, and I live in a historic property in California. I know Ruth Crocker for 20 some odd years. I know the ins and outs of arguing back and forth, who's right, who's wrong, but I'm counting 6 commissioners in this room, and I beg to ask each and every one of you, if this were your home and somebody erected a fence where your property no longer had a waterway view if you would like it very much. And I think it really comes down to neighborly caring and loving for each other and wanting a community that is a beautiful community. It really does look like a prison yard up against her white picket fence. And I hear arguments saying, take the fence down to 6 feet. That's ridiculous. What should happen is the fence should be removed so that the view is unobstructed. And I think that if it were your property, you would agree. And that's all I have to say. Thank you.
Simon?
I am Simon Walton. I live in 116 Fifth Avenue, London, W10 in England. I've known Ruth for more years than I can possibly remember. I do not understand your system. In England, there would be a meeting much like this, but a professional planner who's got a full-scale degree, probably a further degree, got lots of experience, and he would be the one who giving you what we would call the counsellors, the advice on what to say. Now, there obviously isn't somebody like that here, but surely you can go to somebody who can monitor on what the legal situation is, i.e., are you allowed to have a fence that sort of goes up and down? I know the ground goes up and down, or are you not? That must have been set either by law or by precedent, and I would have thought it would be better if you deferred until you'd had a decision, got somebody who could make a decision, probably in another meeting like this, to keep everybody happy. That's all I've got to say. Thank you.
Okay.
I think sure.
Sure. What about Carol?
Carol?
Okay. Good evening. My name is Carol Lyndon Cohanky. I grew up in that neighborhood, and one of the things that nobody seemed to mention, and I've got a hearing issue, so I may have missed it, but in the event that I didn't, the distance between the two fences, there's no way to maintain what's in between the two. And that's going to create a very, very difficult and nasty health issue, because we have an issue with river rats, and they will burrow like crazy. We know from experience, and also watching them along the river. And so I lived at 27 Gravel Street for a family owned that for 60 years. So I'm very familiar with it. Ruth needs her peace and quiet, and what they have done is nasty. Thank you.
Thank you. Okay.
The first, yeah.
There it is.
Yeah.
Sure. I mean, no, but I don't think it matters. No, I don't, yeah. Come on up.
Okay.
You can say both.
Sure.
Yeah.
My name is Portia Bordelon. For full disclosure, I'm a Groton Town Councilor. I live at 24 Jefferson Drive, Groton. Grew up on High Street in Mystic. Have lived here my whole life, raised 2 children here. And I'm here tonight. I'm a neutral, all right? My job is to come out and get the information. I watch a lot of these meetings like planning and zoning and a lot of other meetings in my free time, and try to understand, to make sure I have a pulse of what's going on at the town, to do my due diligence. And that's why I'm here. It would be wrong of me to pick a side tonight because of that, because I don't know all the regulations by heart and I'm still learning. But I just wanted to say that I'm reading this, I'm hearing everybody, both sides. And I do think that, it was stated tonight, the concern, as Mystic Rose, one of the things we wanted, economic drivers, we've got that. And one of the things that, we have to do is protect our historical districts and make sure that everybody's in compliance in that area, or else we lose that beautiful uniqueness of Mystic in general. So for me, what I would say tonight, and I've just been thinking, I did some reading a lot on this, you know, it sounds like terms, definitions, and regulations are unclear. It is the height of the ground to the size of the fence itself. Where is that? So if the regulation or the and I have to go back and read it, and I will. If what was presented was 6 feet and that was going to be the cut and dry and that was what approved, that should be then you order a 5-foot fence because you know your yard is like this and you meet that level, right? In the medical field, you cut once because you don't want to cut twice. And so if there's a regulation that needs to happen, it should stick to that regulation. So I'm very concerned that these regulations are kind of hither and yon and unclear. And I would love that list to see what other 42 residents, even though I know we can't go back, but as a town councilor, I feel it's my job to understand how we got to this point. It was also stated tonight that, you know, in certain sections of town that have other zoning regulations, when you start thinking of coastal access and coastal availability and coastal views, you know, it would make sense. One would consider that there should be some form of regulation to keep the uniqueness of having a water view. If I owned a property down on the waterfront and all of a sudden somebody here put up a 10-foot fence, now my property value decreases. How am I going to be compensated? But I also respect that that neighbor wants privacy. So where do we find the line there? But as a person who walks those roads, I do love to look between the roads. And I used to play and run in between all those neighborhoods and no one cared. They'd spray with the hose as you ran by and you'd walk through. And so when you put up fences, it just creates not a natural sense of that community. So I do have concerns and I do wonder, you know, is this something further where we need to look into? Do we want 6-7 foot fences along water views? I don't know. I mean, this is not for me to decide. I'm not part of this commission. I'm just thinking. I understand that all the points regarding all the commissioners and the facts of the matter. And I hear, you know, I'm here to observe and just listen and gain a better understanding from both sides. And I do hope generally that both sides can work this out with our community at stake. I am concerned that from the town side, it was stated by both parties here that they were to kind of come here and let you guys figure it out. My concern as a town councilor is we have an enforcer for a reason, I thought. If they can't make it, that it's not fair to put it back on the backs of planning and zoning and back on the backs of historic district commission. So those are concerns that I have. Fence panels, style, I mean, the list goes on. But changing the water view is definitely a concern. So those are my comments, and I'll continue to watch this and listen and become more knowledgeable of all of the ins and outs. But I do think there is some concern of if I'm approved, I can have 6-foot fence or 6-foot coverage or 6 foot from the ground. What does that exact paper say? 6-foot coverage. Okay. So 6 foot, you know, so should my fence be 5? Should it be 5.5 to meet the 6 foot? I mean, I think those terms and definitions should be cleared. So my hope is that somehow the group and community can come back together and let's put it back on the town and come up with a plan to rewrite these regulations and maybe pause this for a while and find a way that we can all come together and make sure that there's not going to be 60 more 7-foot fences, or, you know, find ways that we can, you know, build bridges and not fences, right? And see where we can make sure that we're really truly protecting our historic area. But again, it's tough, right? I can understand you want a privacy, you want a fence up, you want a water view. Where is the safety net here? And that should be where our concern is. So maybe like when they put a pause on, you know, data centers for a while, and the commission had to go back and look at that and decide, maybe this does need a pause. Maybe it should be, we shouldn't be approving any more right now until we get it all together, till we define our terms and conditions, because as it states, we can't go back to other ones that are approved. But when you live here your whole life, you want things to be done fairly, and you need to have a precedence and a baseline to judge off of. And I think these, you know, you guys do a fabulous job trying to be the middle person, but when it's thrown back from the town of here, go back, and you guys are both told to bring it back here tonight, it's unfair. We have a zoning, if the zoning person can't figure it out, then where's our enforcement? So, and in my opinion, I think the zoning officer should be at these meetings when these things are being approved, because then questions could be asked. Is this something you're going to be able to enforce? Do you understand? So I have some concerns about maybe the communication terms and definitions, which is not you gentlemen sitting here tonight's problem. You guys have done a great job and I commend you for all your efforts, but I do think there's got to be a better process here. We have much bigger things in town to go through, and these terms should be defined, clear, and be able to be guided and observed and followed appropriately for fairness of both parties at stake here. So that's my hope and that's my research that I'm going to do. So I commend everyone for speaking up for or against. I don't know where I stand. I don't think it's fair, but I will definitely keep taking notes and paying attention and do my due diligence to speak about the process moving forward. And again, thank you to this commission. Thank you.
Sure. Come on up.
Good evening. My name is Chris Palmer. I'm an attorney. I represent Ruth Crocker. I also have the unique distinction of having grown up 2 doors down on Pearl Street, so I'm very familiar with the neighborhood. My question is, why are we here tonight? Doesn't seem like maybe we should be. There was an approved application which specifically stated a 6-foot fence. The zoning officer of the town, Deborah Jones, told me that according to zoning regulations in this town and across most zoning regulations I've ever read in my career, measurements are taken from standard ground grade, not on regraded land, not on excavated land, standard ground grade for the neighborhood. So we had an application for a fence which was approved, and the gentleman built his fence in excess of 6 feet. That fence was built in about January of this year. My client, Mrs. Crocker, noticed the fence obviously in excess of 6 feet and tried since that time, certainly since February, to get the town to measure the fence to determine compliance. That is the code enforcement officer's job. He stated that to me. He stated that he is an agent of this commission. He went out and measured the fence in July, after I had to write to the town manager asking why the town hadn't determined the compliance of the fence that was built in January this year, over 6 months earlier. Mr. Zanarini, the town's code enforcement officer, then determined non-compliance, went to Mr. Carroll, didn't just advise him of the non-compliance issue. He actively advised Mr. Carroll to resubmit an application and advised him in a way to thwart the decision of this board. The decision was made for a 6-foot fence. I think it's, if not an actual conflict, it is an apparent conflict to have your agent, your enforcement officer, going around to non-compliant residences and applicants and advising them how to circumvent the decisions of this commission. That's my job. It's darn close to the unauthorized practice of law what this gentleman is doing. So I'd like to bring it to your attention. If you're going to be looking at procedures and the way things are done, I think the enforcement officer's job is to determine compliance. If necessary, issue a certificate of appropriateness, and if not, enforce the decisions of this body to the letter. A 6-foot fence is a 6-foot fence. And Mrs. Crocker, in asserting her rights as a member of this committee and this community, is not overly assertive, is not overstepping her boundaries in doing so. She's a concerned neighbor. And for her to be told by a member of this commission that she was over assertive, I think is shameful. I urge the board, I urge this commission to deny the current application, revert to the earlier application, which approved a 6-foot fence from standard ground level. I thank you for your time this evening.
Thank you. Sure.
My name is Jorge Funes, Jorge, 38 King Street, Mystic. And I want to say that the historical value of Mystic is the sum or the summation of the historical value of each of the properties. If we allow that horrible new fence, we are reducing the value of the property at 46 Gravel Street. And that is against the historical value of the town. On the other hand, the new fence doesn't add any type of historical value to the town. So basically what we are reducing is the historical value of the town of Mystic. Also, I will say that there are two fences now. So the one that was historical there for many years, we only need one fence. While we should have two fences. If one we choose, we should choose the one that has been there for many, many years. It's the one that provides more historical value to the town. Thank you.
Thank you. There we go with that. All right, does anyone else have anything to say?
One small thing.
Sure.
Your attention to the first one I gave you. There appears to be some. Yes, the first one. It was taken a year ago. Whether we put the fence application, you can see there was a structure, it represented a photograph she showed in the picture. So the photograph of the view. The photograph was taken the day the fence was. It was never a view. I have privacy, trying for many years. Still, as you can see, trees to the height of about 12 feet.
Okay.
So those trees were, that was the view where we applied in the variance. To say that a view was blocked by a fence is not accurate. There's a good representative picture that helped me show. That's the picture that was also.
Okay, thank you. All right, I'm gonna close the public hearing for HDC 23-0002. We're gonna move on. We'll get back to deliberations.
I think Mr. Pardesty's been waiting too.
That's all. I want to just jump back. Mike, are you on? Hardesty, can you raise your hand? Your virtual hand, Mike? Up there. Can you? Yeah. Good. Put that, Mike. So we're going to jump back to HTC 23-40, 14 Fort Rachel Place. This is for the metal roof. Mike, do you want to jump in?
Yes, can you guys hear me?
Yep.
With all of our Zoom experience, somehow I can't see my video, but I hired Bob Wood out of Stonington because I have a lot of leaks in my house. And I'm here in place of Bob Wood, who had a medical emergency. But I believe our application is complete. And I don't have anything to add to it, but I'm open to any questions if there are any.
So Mike,
you want me to
saw
put it,
that
you want me to
with-
put it on the camera for everybody to see?
No, it's okay. So Mike, you just want to change out your architectural shingles to a dark gray-ish, it's in the packet. Metal roof standing seam, similar to what matches across the street.
Exactly.
Yeah. You want to show these?
You want me to put them on so that
They're in the thing.
okay, it's up to you. I
I'm
can
just
put it up
thinking-
there.
They're on mine.
Yeah. Application looks complete. It has everything we're requiring. of it.
Mike, are you doing on the house and the garage or just the house?
Only the house.
He's got it in there.
He's got the list in here. And it matches what Perry's using on his house across the street. It looks like it's.
Where am I? This one. Yeah. But there's also this one.
Oh, Mike, can you state your name and address for the record, please?
Yes, Michael A. Hardesty, 14 Fort Rachel Place, Mystic, Connecticut.
That's where I'm at. Okay, that's it. Yep. Mike, what's up? Is the color pretty similar to your current architectural windows?
Yes, I have the, I don't have,
I just found a photo, so. we're good.
yes.
Any other questions? On this, okay. Michael, if you're good, thank you.
Thank you.
Does anyone in the audience have anything to say in support of the application? Anyone against the application? Anyone online? Okay, HTC 23-40 is closed. HTC 23-004 is continued to 9/5 for the applicant.
Which one's that?
That is 23 West Mystic Avenue. I'm gonna go to HTC 23-0005 46 Pearl Street.
Going back to 23 West Mystic, that's also a sign posted on the door. So can town staff ask the applicant, please put it in a more visible place that's not 30 feet off the road, please? Yes.
No. So HTC 23-0005 46 Pearl Street. Hi. Good.
Thank you for this opportunity to share. Hence, that is definitely under 6 feet. Okay. Right.
Just gonna
My name
wanna
is Sharon. Right.
Line it up with that right there. Yep.
My
Thank you.
name is Sharon Reinhardt and I live at 46 Pearl. And this is request for a fence. I will say it's by Luther again. He's been busy in our neighborhood. And the fence is right here. Let's see the little, I did it in red, but maybe it didn't show up too well, but it's just goes across the front a little bit. Oh, thank you. It goes across the front a little bit and then down the side and then connects over to the side of the house again. It's about 104 linear feet. It is 15 feet from the front sidewalk here, goes out to the side of the house about 20 feet. And again, it's about 104 linear feet. It's 48 inches high, which is 4 feet. It's the Granite Home Series Black by Luther Fence. My neighbors across the street have brought a picture, have a very similar one, again by Luther Fence. So I'll show you a couple of pictures of my house. You'll see, we'll be doing some landscaping as well, but this is our house. And you can see that the fence will go probably around, let's see, I'm not good at this, this is like the opposite. Okay, I'm just gonna point to the picture. So the fence is gonna go right about here. My hands are horrible. Okay, it's gonna go down this way, and then it's gonna go down here and this down here. So it's just a fence that takes up part of the yard on the side. And then I'll show you what the side of the yard looks like also. So this is kind of the front view of the house, okay? So it's over here on this side again, right? So all of this green that you see in front here will be all plants and everything in front of the fence. This is what my neighbors looks like right across the street. They're very similar to the fence. And the one that we've selected is this one here. I'll put red stars on it, you can see it. It's the Home Series. And it's the granite and it's 4 feet, very simple. And here's some details around the materials and how it's made. Again, it's the Black Home Series, 4 feet. There's another picture of it. And so that's the fence we're looking at putting in. So pretty simple. I will say that I have my materials list here for you as well. And for materials, it is, again, the aluminum fence. And then right where the fence hits the ground, we're going to do like 4 inches and fill it in nicely with river rock so that we can ensure proper drainage, keep it clean and crisp and look nice. In front of the fence, we'll do some nice hydrangeas, every yard needs hydrangeas, needs it, right? Boxwoods and roses, and so I think aesthetically, we will be moving from this to something quite beautiful. And the fence, I think, will be complemented nice. There's several houses in our neighborhood that have a very similar fence. So requesting approval for this. And I know Ted came out and did a walk of the property as well. And I did post my son.
I saw in the window, got a picture of it, put it in your file.
You were the 20 out there.
Oh, sorry.
So
Put
no,
that in the
that's
file,
fine.
please.
So, any questions or concerns?
Yeah, I have some. I mean, I think it's wonderful.
Mhm.
I want you to put the picture of the fence back up.
Which one? The,
And
I mean, you got
This happened, 46.
this one, or I can do the other ones. This is actually the one we're doing right here. Yeah. Okay, yeah.
all right, I want to point out for the record that the 48 inches, width dimension is 48 inches. It's not the height of the fence. It's the height from that bottom part of the fence to that top rail. So this little nub on the post will go above 48 inches. And this little, they would, since it doesn't touch the ground, it's got about another inch on the bottom. So this fence will actually be about 50 inches or 52, 50 something, it depends on the ground. So your fence that we would always usually approve, the regular installation, the dimension of 48 inches is the height of the panel, not the overall height of the fence. So I want to make that really clear that what we're going to approve here, because we have some earlier discussion says we don't know what 48 inches means. And I think it's wonderful, Sharon. I'm happy to approve. I think it's still approvable.
Great.
I think it's consistent with our past things. I see your hand, John. Yes, I'm almost done.
No, that's why I just put it up.
All right, so I think we did the same thing with the fence we talked about earlier. We said 6 feet and it was 6 feet from there to there. Now, all that discussion earlier sounds like we're confused about which way we do it. And I might be wrong about it, but I think in your case, we ought to be really clear so that later your neighbors can't say, well, wait a minute, it's an inch over. And measure it and be back here doing what's just happened.
Our neighbors are just dying for us to do something with this yard, to be honest with you. So I think if it was a little couple inches above that, they're
You're gonna
still,
avoid complaints.
they're stopping and saying, we love what you've done so far. And I'm like, really? And they're like, yeah.
Right.
And we've talked to them about what we're doing and they're like, this will be great. So,
Sure.
but I get your point.
Well, and Ted, to your point, not to bring this up later on, but I think we just have it in front of me right now. You know, I'm saying words matter. I agree with the attorney. Words matter, and what you write down matters. Okay, so it's not like he says, well, it's close. No, words matter, definitions matter. So to your point, when we write the COs, I think that's what it needs to say. 48-foot panels not to exceed a height of 56 inches. Yeah.
Agreed, Jim.
Yeah, all right.
Anything else? Or
No,
just,
that's
I'm
it.
sorry. no, no, no.
That's it. Yeah, no, it's it. Wouldn't you like it? You want everything?
Does anyone in the audience have anything to say in support of the application? Anyone against the application? Okay, HTC. Thank you. HTC 23 at 000.
You want my materials?
0005 is closed. HTC 23-0006 23 Library Street. This is
That's
Brad
fine.
Horn though, but you had a medical thing? Are you not?
No,
No, it's a
this is-
different-
This is the real Brad Horn.
Yeah, believe it or not, there's two Brad Horns not related on that. It's
I think there's-
completely blew my mind.
Okay, brought up.
We don't think there's two.
Okay. Got it. Okay. The real Brad Horn.
Hi, I'm Brad Horn. I own the property at 23 Library Street. And my builder came and represented me in the last meeting to present this earlier. Let's see if we can get this in.
Good.
Yeah.
There you go.
Okay, so this is the building that was at 23 Library Street. It's a storied property. Anybody that's been in town for a while knows some of the history. The property burnt down and we bought the foundation. And we are building this, which can't quite fit. Sure.
Can you zoom out a little?
I have a smaller one.
That's all right. I'll use it about.
Here. Books, So this is what we're building in progress right now. It's partially done. I expect it to be done in about a year. And you can see it's a pretty different style from what was the earlier property, which was a shingle style. This is Victorian style. And so we would like to redo the facade of the garage also in the same time frame within the next year. So that's the existing garage facade, and this kind of faces Route 1. And it's kind of a Greek revival structure. It had some columns here, which have kind of rotted, and we tried to preserve the structure, but the front facade is in bad shape. And here's a side view that you also see on Route, when you walk on Route 1. And what we'd like to do is go from, here's kind of a dimensional representation of the existing facade, which has 3 garage doors that are circa 1970. I don't know what the original doors looked like, but these are kind of paneled doors from that era. Don't really match the property too well and are in pretty bad shape. But what we'd like to do is change this kind of carriage house look, which matches the Victorian style in the house. And we'd like to do 2. These are custom made carriage house doors, cedar, painted white, and existing shingles. The existing shingles on the other sides of the house would be replaced initially with shingles and ultimately with siding to match the house itself, which we haven't chosen the siding for that, but we've got a previous approval from the commission here to use clapboard siding with kind of a pastel look that I showed you earlier. And so we would propose to side the building to match the house and also re-roof. You notice there was a gable with the Greek revival look. We take that gable off and add this cupola on top, and we would re-roof the entire roof with the same shingles that are on the house, which are architectural shingles. And I've submitted online the kind of a photo of the architectural shingles that are on the house, and as well as some photos of the cupola that we'd like to use, which is something like this. Like my builder, this is the house of our builder, and so we'll have something pretty much identical.
Has to be like that, or no?
Well, I'm happy to say it'll be identical to that.
Right. Well said.
Very like that, yeah.
I mean, you can come back and modify it.
Sure, yep. But that's our plan. Let's see.
Before you take that picture of the drawing away, Brad,
Go ahead.
I think it looks great. There's dimensions on there.
Did you, yeah,
Like,
I don't know if you added them up because I was pulling my hair out because I labeled this wrong.
no, I mean, what I'm getting at,
Yeah.
it's a simple question,
Go ahead.
is that, are those like, got a tolerance specified, like 8
Um,
feet plus or minus an inch, or 1/8 of an inch, or
I
just in case we get into issues in the future about it not being exactly.
Good. I think it's fair to say plus or minus an inch. I actually, Ted, I labeled these numbers wrong. These are actually 10, this number right here is 10 foot. And in my submittal online, these are 10-foot wide doors. And if you do the math, I stared at this for a while and I said, that should be bigger if these were 9-foot doors. So these are actually 10-foot doors in my online submittal.
You write that.
You bet.
Write that on.
Yeah. Yeah. 10 foot. And both of these are 10 foot and they're 8 foot high. And I think, to your question, I think we're talking about plus or minus an inch, all these dimensions.
See, could it be appropriate to write that down on there so that in the future we'll.
Sure.
we'll know how close you have to be to avoid complaints.
Scale. Why don't I do, I'm gonna put in here dimensions. Plus or minus 1 inch. My initials. That. And as I mentioned, this entire wall will need to be ripped off, and we'd support the entire structure. The existing posts between the garage doors are rotting, kind of falling into the ground, so we would need to pour an additional footing right here in the middle.
But the footprints, exactly.
Footprint won't change. Yeah. Yep.
So is that 30 inches, 24 inches? Between the two doors, plus or minus an inch?
That's actually 30 feet.
Oh,
Here,
30 feet, I'm sorry.
30 feet, that's
So
the
what's
overall
the-
dimension.
So the distance between the doors is whatever.
That's right. You have to subtract, it's 2 feet. It turns out to be 2 feet. Yep.
Does anyone else have any questions?
Good. Thank you. Online submittal. You want the big ones?
I'll take it all.
Right. Thank you, gentlemen, for your volunteer work.
And this has got everything that you do.
Big and small ones.
You know what I'm saying?
Yeah, the small
Yeah,
ones.
it's a duplicate.
We give you back the big ones. Just 'cause-
Yeah, right, because and you didn't write it.
Yep, and all of this has been submitted online.
Okay.
Thank you.
Anyone in the audience having the same support of the application? Anyone against the application? Okay, HTC 23-00006. Real Brad.
Thank you.
Thank you.
HTC 23-0007 148 High Street, Anna. Come on. What's the name address?
Anna Triano, 148 High Street, Mystic, Connecticut.
Thank you for posting your sign right on the road too. I appreciate it.
Oh, good, you saw. Yeah, look out there.
If there's no building to put it on, right?
Look right on the sidewalk. It's awesome.
Oh, good.
Yeah.
So it's a modification.
Yep.
From stone to cedar shingles. And it is
You're just changing all the siding, which was stone veneer in your original application.
yes,
Cedar shake.
yes.
Well, we don't really care. We don't care about leaching oil, just the cedar shingles.
Great.
I would have you push
I
that.
think it's much, I like it to look better, but I think one keep it with the neighborhood. So
Yes, definitely.
So. We don't want, we can't. Say that block of wood there. Well, we got something written.
If it's changing a cedar shake. You can say it's changing.
you have a list of a piece of paper with the type of cedar shake you use and where you're buying it from and everything like that.
Actually, it's here.
Perfect.
Yeah, it's. Okay,
So this is probably on.
Yeah, that's what. We told you to submit that.
yes,
Last time.
yes.
Okay.
Yeah, I was here already.
Do you have anything else?
That's it.
Anyone else have anything else?
Thank you.
Anyone in the audience having the same support of the application? Anyone against the application? HTC 23-0007. HTC 23-0008, 30 Pearl Street. Lisa. What's? She lies. Oh my goodness, that's good. I think Lisa was here. Okay. Pass on that. It's. Well, we're gonna have to. Do it in certain things. Okay, at this point, I'm gonna close the public hearings. And we'll move on to consideration. HTC 23-38 is being withdrawn.
This is Lisa.
Oh, I'm sorry. Sorry, we'll reopen the public hearings and go back to HTC 23-0008 33 Pearl Street.
Hi, this is Sally from the Heat Master. I was presenting on the heat pump a couple weeks ago. And just the issue of posting the signage. Just
Yours like,
my
there's
house is a
3
tough one.
houses I missed, and yours was one of them.
And-
So I don't
and
have
the-
pictures of yours.
and
I got Mr.
My front door
Hardesty.
doesn't face the street and I have hedges, so I kind of put it on a post,
Yeah, I saw,
sticking out as much as I could. I mean, I
it.
saw it, yeah, so.
I'm sorry for missing you, but you were one of the 2 I missed.
Okay,
So
yeah, so it was posted and mine is the heat pump,
thank you for posting the
That's-
sign. I appreciate it.
yeah. Here we go. For those of us who are dyslexic, okay, so.
Most every.
So basically it's going, the heat, and this is the situation where I spoke with Kristen about it. She's aware this is happening and, it's gonna be right about in this area. It may end up being further down this way, depending on what's gonna work best for her, because we talked about it, and I'm gonna be putting up a privacy screen. So there'll be some kind of a lattice, maybe
Zoom, zoomed in here, Lisa.
For the-
If you back up a second, if I'm standing on Pearl Street looking at your house. this
Right.
will
This
Be on the
is
right
you-
side or the left side of the house?
So you're standing at Pearl, it's right,
It's
it's
on
the
the
left,
left side.
it's the south side of the house, so I can show you a photo that kind of ornaments you.
And your driveway and stuff's on the right side, right?
Correct.
Front door. Got it.
And you can't, I mean, this is the view.
It's
from-
really hard to see because it's a hedge. there's
Right,
hedges and
this is
stuff.
the view from Cliff, literally, I mean, you can't see it from Cliff, that's Kristen's house, the yellow house. And then the heat pump would be on the other side of where her house is, you can't, yeah. And then from Pearl Street, it is.
Behind all that.
So it's, that's where garbage can. And then the hedges, which have been trimmed back somewhat, but it will be back there. But there'll be a privacy fence and some kind of maybe ivy or something like that. So that's like really, I think, the only additional info to present, except for just the image of what the compressor. will look like. And it's pretty standard, so. This is prior to the renovation, but that's the south side of the house we're asking. So that's Pearl Street, you see the front of the house. And then this is where all this is now enclosed with windows, but this is where the heat pump will go and then the compressor here. And it's gonna be a split, so there's gonna be an additional unit up in the front of the house and then one on the side, as far as just in the walls. But there's just the one compressor outside. So,
Anything else?
I think that's it.
Yeah, I think-
Do you need to see anything?
We need all the paperwork.
Oh, all the paperwork,
Yeah.
yep. So this all was submitted online, so you should have copies of everything. Everything.
Well, I believe we did when we looked.
Other than the.
Actually, not everything.
Okay.
Lisa. If you can spare it, let us have it so it's in the
Okay,
file.
yep, so some of it I presented last time. Yeah, that should be all.
Okay.
Privacy screen, thank you.
Thank you.
Does anyone in the audience have anything to say in support of the application? Anyone against the application? HTC 23-0008 is closed. And I will again close the public hearings and move on to consideration of public hearings. Getting back to the screen, HTC 23-3815 Water Street was removed. That may be withdrawn in the motion.
Yeah, I'd actually to make a motion to deny the application.
You make them positive, to make the motion positive, John, then we don't approve it.
Yeah, you have to make a motion to.
Oh, got it. Make a motion to approve the application.
I will second that. Goodman. All in favor?
Uh,
Well, I'd like to have discussion.
Okay.
I intend to vote yes. I think John's intending to vote no. And I think we got 2 weeks ago, 2 meetings ago, Bailey came and explained everything he's doing. I think his presentation is complete. I think it's a small difference. I think we should approve it because it's a small difference, and I think our job is to keep the character of the buildings and the district intact, and not worry about the details of the actual structure. And it was a very close thing last time
I know.
when he was here, and
Let
everybody
him
was here.
finish.
So that's my pitch for, I'm gonna vote for this, and I hope you do too.
So Ted, the reason I actually put the motion forward, the applicant withdrew the application. We're just,
Then in that case, there's no need for a motion. But now that
yes,
you've
there
made
is
one and it's
two.
been seconded, then he'll have a choice on what he wants to do.
Okay,
He doesn't have to do what we say. If we grant him a certificate, he doesn't have to
Well,
execute.
you're voting on. I'm voting on the violation.
What violation?
We found the violation. of the steps.
We did?
yes.
And so how do I know if somebody's in violation?
You removed the steps without a COA.
So is our violations documented?
Yeah.
Yes, it was part of the violation list we got.
And so I've never seen a copy of a documented violation.
Tom Zanarini's brought up at every meeting you've been at. Every time we go over enforcement actions, it's been an enforcement action.
All right, so maybe I don't know what an enforcement looks like. Could you show me the one for his violation?
We voted to find the violation.
And that sounds like you sent the applicant or the property owner a ticket, like a thing that says, here's what's wrong with your thing and what you have to do to fix it.
So that's what we did. So Tom Zanarine found the steps have been removed without a COA. He
All right,
started an enforcement action that I think's been brought up for 4 months now. From memory, 3 months, 4 months.
Yep.
Mr. Pryor then came in with the application to add the steps, which he has just withdrawn. So I'm making a motion to
he came in with the application to remove the steps, not add the steps.
remove the steps because it was a violation. He didn't come in on his own volition. He came in because there was an enforcement action.
All right, so I guess I don't understand the enforcement actions that you guys are all familiar with. So is there a way for me to see that as a commissioner, to see the documents that we're sending people?
You can request it from town staff, but
You get the report. It's in the.
Well. in
Yeah,
the meeting,
Peter
we
and
talk
Tom will
about
give it to us at every
enforcement
meeting.
actions, But I don't see any, what the homeowner is getting that tells them with some clarity what's wrong with their.
Doesn't matter. We made a vote to find the steps. Remove the steps.
All
of
right.
violations.
I understand. I'm going to defer to you guys on the steps.
He was sent a notice of violation. He then put it in an application.
Fine.
correct. So we're gonna find him in violation. We're gonna give him a time frame on this. Well, I'm not saying we, that's the motion I'm making. That way I'm gonna vote, give him a time frame to put those steps back. Otherwise, he'd have 5 years to put them back, and I think they should be returned in less than 5 years. That's personally.
Okay, so I'll stick it to this topic. My bigger topic is I don't understand the violation process, so. I'll that something at another time, I agree.
So, yeah, let me withdraw my second. I'm gonna make a motion. Deny the application. We deny the application. Remove the steps. And we require him to put it back, put the steps back by December 31st.
Goodrich second.
I think that's an improper motion. You gotta rework. You can't say negatives. You have to say positive.
There's nothing in Robert's Rules of Orders that prevent him from making that motion. So
Yeah,
I
there
will
is.
second the motion.
All right, I think it's an improperly worded motion.
Noted. All in favor?
What's the motion again? Tell me again.
He's gonna return the steps
to
to the.
I heard the word deny in the
deny
motion.
the application to remove the steps. And to require him to put the steps back. That were already found in violation by 1231.
Why don't we just do the second part?
We're doing.
I make a motion to amend your motion.
You have a second. On three now first.
Goodrich, aye.
Brady, I.
Goodman, aye.
Ferguson, abstain right now. It's a good process.
I'm voting no because I think it's an improperly worded motion.
No. You have that? Oh, no, she's on. Yeah.
Yes.
Right, HTC 23-40, 14 Fort Rachel Place. This is the metal roof. Any comments, motions?
I think it's a good looking roof. I think it matches Mr. Ennis's house across the street. So I think it's fine.
I will second, even though I've been a staunch opponent to metal roofs in the past, and that's starting to change my mind.
And you're finally growing up on it.
I am growing up according to Todd. And second, so vote.
I don't think we made a motion. That was discussion, right? So Goodrich should make a motion to approve the roof as per the application.
You made the motion. I said.
Okay. I thought we were just discussing. Motion made anyhow, second, and Goodrich, aye.
Brady, I.
Goodman, aye.
Ferguson, I.
Yes, and second inviting.
Keatsman, aye.
So HTC 23-40 is approved. HTC 23-41, this is 7 Oak Street. They're still within their 65-day period. So I'll just make a motion to continue.
Second, Brady.
All in favor?
Goodrich, aye.
Brady, I.
Goodman, aye.
Ferguson, I.
Keatsman, aye.
HTC 23-40.
Scott, do you have these certificate numbers? For these approvals? Is he doing it online now? Oh, I shouldn't put it. Okay. Sorry.
I think the number is.
Correct. That's
The original application.
yeah.
HTC 23-0002 21 Groton Street. I have never done this, but I'd like to make a motion to move this into session for 5 minutes.
It's gonna require a 2/3 vote. I've never done it before. I'm generally against it, but in a situation, I'll second it.
It's all in favor.
Yeah, I do too.
Thank you. I would just like to discuss the understanding.
And also, since there's an attorney, a town attorney's opinion on it, I think executive section is justified for that reason.
I don't want to discuss anything relating to that. I just want to discuss the. Well, we'll do that for 5 minutes. So I think. I don't know what it is. So.
Mr. Collins, the reason I was going to okay it is because there is a town attorney opinion on this. Hang on, that I was going to bring up. That was my reason behind it.
Well, it's the interpretation of the attorney I'm curious about among us, and the attorney's email was sent to us.
Right, and I think if I may, and if I'm wrong, correct me, I think Ted was questioning the attorney's opinion.
Well, I have no problem limiting it less than 5 minutes.
or not doing it, whatever, but everybody feels it's fair.
I don't mean to argue, I know it's not a big thing. The principle is that you need to cite the reason, and even if it's not a legal opinion, it's in the context of litigation or reason that you're discussing in private, and the fact that litigation or legal strategy or something. You don't have a right to be in discuss.
Sure.
You need to cite the law that you're going into that. I mean, and that's the law, you have to do it on the record.
So I wanted to discuss the interpretation of the email from the attorney to. And that's fine. I'll withdraw the motion.
Okay. We've already closed it. Yeah.
Okay,
You guys could recess, and speak.
I was gonna go down by the.
Yeah, I do agree with what was stated, so yeah, I just want to, Aaron's got a caution, we're not sure if they'll do it, if it doesn't fall into the Apple line requirements.
So I can ask both Counselor Bordelon, whoever wants. I mean, again, my reason was we have a town attorney's opinion on it. We have a commissioner who has brought up possible legal action, and that's where I thought executive session was okay. Like I said, I'm technically against it. I know the chairperson wanted it, so I was giving a second to see if the rest of the commission.
I'm not a practicing attorney, but from what I read in Robert's rules, but we don't have to.
We don't.
We just withdraw. It's fine.
I think that given the current uncertain status of exactly what the height of a fence is and the issues that Ted has raised, I would make a motion to continue this hearing for the next meeting and not go with it.
I would make the motion.
Well, does he have a second? You gotta see if he gets a second.
Second, sure. And I would make a motion to, because if the zoning regulation is 7 feet. And he wants a modification. We don't see any reason why.
Okay, so I have quite a lot to say on this. Can I have the floor for a few minutes?
Sure.
Okay. Where do I start? Words matter. Definitions matter. We said a 6-foot fence. If we wanted to quantify that, that should have been in the COA. It wasn't. The enforcement officer for the town went out and said the fence was not in compliance and brought it back to us. That's pretty important to me. You and I read the town attorney's and town manager's opinion on this, and they've brought up that it may not be in compliance. So I think the question of compliance, not in compliance. You know, as I asked Mr. Carroll, he said 6'4". I've been told by Mr. Zanarini 6'7". I've got photographs from Miss Crocker and Jerry showing 6'7", 6'9". 6'7", 6'9" to me, that's a huge difference. You know, 1 or 2 inches. I'd probably, I don't know, but when you're talking 7, 8, 9 inches, it's a big deal to me.
So John.
Let me finish. I need a few minutes and I would like that respect. You know, we talk about mistakes. Mistakes happened last time. Okay. You know, my opinion that I made a mistake, we can talk about it later or not. Maybe not part of this conversation, but mistakes driven by what preceded you, made by town staff. And now, per Mr. Carroll's opinion, we've got another mistake by town staff. That sign was supposed to be posted 15 days before this hearing. It is a policy we all voted on and agreed. And instead town staff calls and goes, oh, whoops, you want to put it up, and you know, it's a few days before, and no offense to Mr. Carroll, he wasn't instructed where to put it. I mean, I'll challenge any of you guys for me to walk 20 feet down the road and read what's on a piece of paper. You can't. So again, we have a situation where the supposed aggrieved party says, I didn't know about it. You know, one of the reasons I push that we have a policy so like this doesn't happen again because of her issue and other issues. And, you know, it's almost, I think, a slap in the face to everybody to have a sign posted so far away that nobody can read it. And is it Mr. Carroll's fault? Probably not. Is it Ruth's fault? Probably not. Is it any of our fault? Probably not, but town staff, and we rely on our town staff to help us with this. So when that goes wrong, I mean, you know, frankly, if Miss Crocker wasn't as invested in this, would have been another whoopsie where, you know, if she was out of town, she didn't read the sign and she didn't walk, know what the sign looked like. I mean, this is a big thing we got to consider. You know, again, I'm going to restate it. You know, I've heard from Mr. Burke, I've heard from Tom, I've heard from Rich Cody. All of them consider this a compliance issue. And at some point, I mean, you know, I'm like when I bring it up, they're very highly paid, supposedly professional town staff. So if they're finding this to be a compliance issue, then we've got to look at it as a compliance issue. I think it's way outside our purview to say, well, yeah, 6'4" is okay, or 6'7", or I don't think it's fair to anybody. And you know, again, I'm not a trained attorney. I know a couple of you guys have legal training, but to me, I'm going to say it again, words matter and definitions matter. Because then what is it for the next guy? Why do I said black wrought iron, but you know, aluminum was cheaper? Well, but it's black. But did we define, you know, our COAs have to have some teeth behind them, and just kind of saying, yeah, I know we said 6 and, you know, but it's not. And on the other hand, I agree. I know fence panels come in 6-foot panels. Okay, that's the way they're built. I understand that. I've had a lot of work done on my house right now. I get how things go. But we didn't write the COA that way. And again, is Mr. Carroll's fault, or is that Ms. Crawford's fault? No. But again, we as a commission didn't write what we meant. And shame on us. But it is the legal document that exists. The legal document needs to be enforced. So, you know, I'm going to kind of go off a little bit of a tangent here. We talked about, does somebody have the right to a view, and who has rights, and, you know, so I'm just going to finish off with this and you guys take it for what it's worth. Our historic district is a national historic district. Not Mystic's historic district. It's not New England County's historic district. It's actually listed on the National Register of Historic Places. And that's a pretty big thing. So what that means, and I'll read it, is that it's on an inventory of building, structure, sites, and areas and objects that are significant to the history of America, its architecture, archaeology, and culture. I'm going to read that again. Significant in American history, architecture, archaeology, and culture. It's a pretty big deal. It's not, I want to paint my door yellow. And I think people that came before us sort of saw that, because that's, again, I'm not a lawyer, so let the lawyers speak to this. It's actually sort of, no, it's not sort of, it is protected in the Connecticut EPA regulation. So I'm going to just read a couple sections. Section 22A, 1A-1, Section 5, environment, meaning the physical, biological, social, and economic surroundings and conditions which exist in an area which may be affected by an action, including but not limited to land, air, soil, minerals, flora, fauna, noise, objects of historic or aesthetic significance, and community or neighborhood characteristics. I think this fence speaks to that. It's a neighborhood characteristic. It's aesthetic. Goes on further, and this is 22A-1A-3, subsection B, and I'm sorry if I'm reading their wrong, I'm not an attorney, 4, that we can look at it for disruption and alteration of a historic, archaeological, cultural, recreational building, object, district, site, or its surroundings. So, Mr. Carroll, I get the fact that you bought a house there and you have a right to your privacy. But I'm going to say this, you bought a historic district. Okay, I'm going to give you my own personal example. I own a very historic house built in 1745. Previous to buying it, I looked at a house on Gravel Street. The reason I didn't buy the house on Gravel Street is I looked at it during a nor'easter and the basement was flooding. So I made a decision that I didn't want to deal with the flooding basement. So that I bought a 1745 house that probably, wasn't somebody as crazy as me to buy it and dump more money into it than should to save it, probably shouldn't stand. But that's a decision I made, and I don't complain that, well, it's this or it's that. Because if I wanted a modern house, I would have bought a modern house. I made the decision to buy a historic house. We made the decision to buy in a historic district. And again, I'm not an attorney, so maybe I'm all wrong. Maybe we should, let the attorneys weigh in. But the Connecticut EPA means that the historic district is part of the public trust. Okay, so all those people that say, hey, I live in Griswold, or I live here, or I live in Mystic, they're residents of Connecticut. And our historic district belongs to them. It's part of their trust, and they have a right to enjoy it. So in my opinion, you got an approval for a 6-foot fence. And I'm gonna vote that you build a 6-foot fence, not 6'4", not 6'7", not 6'9". That's, when we make the motion, obviously very upfront, that's how I vote.
I just want to jump in for a second. If we were talking about demolition of the historic structure, moving a historic fence, I would be here screaming and yelling with you.
I know you would.
About how it shouldn't be torn down. It's tearing it apart, whatever. But I also understand construction firsthand. And I don't think that he came for an approval of 6-foot fence. There was ambiguity of what 6-foot is. He's come back and he said, I'm putting in another application for a 6-foot fence. So what? Limit from town 7 feet. That's the ordinance. If we want to get together and change the ordinance, we can change the ordinance. He's come back. He said, I want it to be 6'4". Who are we to tell him that it can't? He's not demolishing anything historic. There's fences up and down the street that are within that size. Why do we have a right to say to him, no, not you? But everyone else can have it? It doesn't make any sense. And the fact that he wants to come back and ask for the modification, what difference is it for Anna coming back and asking to change her siding? What if the gentleman decides to do his garage and, hey, I want the cupola a foot bigger because it looks cooler? I don't. He
And,
comes
and we
back
would
and
have the right to say no.
Right, we have a right to say no. So we have a right to tell him no. And we also have an obligation to tell him yes or no. That's it. And if you think it's so egregious that it's 6'4" versus 6 feet, then tell him no, that's fine. That's your
It's
choice.
6'9".
6'9", whatever. If it's below the 7 feet, if it's above the 7 feet, he's got an ordinance problem, gotta go to the town. Get with that. So if it's below 7 feet, he wants to come back and ask for the modifications. He wants to ask for it 11 times, 6'1", 6'2", 6'3". Let him do it. I just don't think that in a street that's lined with fences up and down that vary in heights, I don't think it's fair to turn to one person and say you can't have it. You have to go back to 6 feet. You gotta tell everyone. I also agree with you about the construction of the neighborhood. I think that it's a very unique place, and I think that it is tough to see views and properties changed. I mean, I've made the comment over and over again, as you all have heard, that I've ridden my bike, walked up and down the streets for 37 years. Or I don't know. So it's tough when things are changed and moved and relocated. You know, it was probably nice to walk by Pearl Street and see it. But pictures show you couldn't see it. If he doesn't want the fence, he wants to come back to the 12-foot arborvitae. So we tell him no.
That's true. We have no
So
jurisdiction.
we can't get involved with that. The HTC handbook, which we're in the process of reworking, but currently allows him to have the fence at 6'4", at 6'9", at 6'11 and a half, 6 and 11 and 7/8. So what's your reasoning to say no?
We approved the 6-foot fence, and that's all I'm comfortable approving. That's my reason. And I think I've stated all the other reasons pretty succinctly.
Okay.
So John, you're gonna vote no.
He's gonna vote.
When we
Nice.
vote. And intending to vote no. is what I'm
Let's
hearing.
put the motion on the side of my vote when the vote comes up. Yeah.
I didn't know which
I-
side,
I
I
just-
wasn't sure which side you were speaking for.
I just think again, and I'm gonna say this again. You have a town manager who has a degree and experience in what he does. Okay. None of us do. I sell cars for a living. I have a degree in art history and preservation, but it's not what I do, right? I have a town attorney who's supposedly a trained land use attorney. Working for a big firm in the area, getting paid $400,000 a year by the town, not him, but firm is. And we've got Mr. Zanarini, who's supposedly trained in his job. All would be considered experts who have said that this is a violation issue. And I think for us to be like, hey, people think who cares? I don't know. I don't think it's right.
It's a violation issue if we want to then further find him a violation, having done so. He's currently coming back and asking for a modification, no different than anyone else that's come to ask for a modification. I completely agree with you that the ball was dropped by staff previously, by Peter Zanarini, who's no longer here, and further by Tom Zanarini in many fashions.
And by Sue just now on the side.
And fine. I'm less concerned, but fine. But I don't think that this is the appropriate form to deliberate that. So I put a motion on the table to approve it. Because it's coming back for a modification. Want to vote no, you vote no. Do I have a second?
I second. And I would just say that, I mean, I hear what you're saying, John, and so to the extent that you are opposed to a fence that's more than 6 feet, that's your prerogative. But in fact, the fence can be higher. And the fact that it was approved for 6 feet and it isn't, means it was subject to an enforcement action because it didn't comply.
Right.
But he has the right to come back and request a change to what he had approved, and that's what he's here for. He's here to get approval for a higher fence because the fence is high. So the violation at that point is really of no moment, because if we were to approve the greater height, it's just an issue.
You're right. And if you want to, as it was suggested by what's suggested by Maria, we want to make modifications to the fencing in this new handbook, we do that at a later date. We'll discuss that. So
Yeah, because I think I hear your argument.
Yeah,
Ed, I hear your
I'm
argument,
arguing I'm with John. I'm gonna vote no.
but you're voting no because you don't think it's a violation.
I don't think it's in violation.
You see, I don't think that.
I think the officer hasn't fully comprehended what he's doing. I think the town attorneys haven't looked into the detail. I think they haven't looked at our consistent record of how we've done it. I'm not done. Go ahead, interrupt me.
we're gonna get back to this one. Yeah, it's not, I'm just trying to say, who cares about the violation because he's asking for a modification.
I do. Okay, I mean, I could vote either way, right? Because he gets the fence the way it is if we approve. But I think he gets the fence the way it is if we deny, because I think the fence is it meets the certificate of analysis that certificate of appropriateness that we issued to him. What he presented on the time that he got it, his architect did for him, it said a Luther fence, 6-foot panels, 210 feet long. I mean, there's nothing in there to point it. It didn't say it's 6 feet high. It said it's a 6-foot fence.
If he's coming back for a modification,
I
asking to change it. So are you're gonna vote no to the modification because you think, even though he's asking for the modification, you're gonna vote no to say. you're
Yeah, no, that
actually
sounds kind of dumb.
biased? It doesn't really work.
It sounds kind of dumb, but it sounds like now we're gonna, everybody that does this fence, you know, we're gonna have every fence. The nominal name of every fence, it's always gonna be over. So now we're gonna always include tolerances on every fence application.
Maybe that's what we have to do.
I guess
But I
that's-
think that that's at least more certain than your argument, which is that there really aren't any defined tolerances, so therefore we should approve it anyway. Or it's.
No, it's a reasonable construction. I think their lawyers are gonna have you brought up lawyers. I'm trying to avoid talking about lawyers because everybody does and gets all weirded out. But I think the town is gonna look super vulnerable if they get taken to court on not. His original application is good, and I think. He could easily win on his original one, and I think we're being stupid. So I think we're taking a big risk or putting the town in a bad place. That's not my opinion. That's my opinion. You guys disagree and you're interpreting differently.
All he's doing is coming back, asking to modify.
I understand, and he's
So
doing that.
His right.
He's,
Come back
I
and
understand,
ask for it.
but he's motivated by a zoning officer that I think has made a mistake. Frankly, and so if he knew his thing was in compliance, but he wouldn't be here.
I'm just trying to get to the crux of this though, which is that. What difference does it make? What reason he's coming back? He's coming back and asking for it to go to 6.4.
Well, because the reason he's coming back is he's responding to a neighbor complaint. And it's being hassled by a neighbor, making him redo his stuff. And the neighbor, I don't think there's any historical difference between the inches that we're talking about on the top of the fence. So historically, there's zero significance here on either fence.
I completely agree.
And so I think the neighbor's doing it because she felt she was done badly and she's trying to do badly back. So I'm.
That point of order, I don't think
That's
it's not in our,
You're interrupting me, John. I wasn't quite done.
well, but that's, I think it's an inappropriate thing to say. We're not here
All
to
right.
delineate
That's what,
people's
because
motivations.
I don't know the motivation.
Fair
And
enough.
when I've asked that motivation, I've been told the motivation is people should do it, if it's 6 feet, it's 6 feet. Well, if that's the case, then everybody can turn into a vigilante and go around and look for everybody else's fence. Every fence is out of compliance in the district right now. Because they're all over what they got approval for. So everybody can go around and hassle their neighbors and ask them to lower the fence, because we've opened the. No, they have to go through the compliance process first, right?
Come back for a modification if they want. If the neighbor's so inclined in some other scenario to report their neighbor because the fence is out, the person can come back
Then, wait, the homeowner has to come back.
and let him come back.
I don't want to come back as a homeowner when I have a perfectly well installed fence and a neighbor complains. Now I have to come back and sit here for a couple hours.
But the gentleman's here asking him to go from 6 to 6 feet. The question is, do you want to vote to approve him to modify it from 6 to 6 feet? That's the question. That's the motion. That's been seconded. That's the vote. Period. It's not about intention or about legal
Sure.
liability. That's it.
All
It's
right.
that simple.
Historically, what he's got built isn't changing then, right? Like there's no, what's the change here?
Nothing. What he has is what we can make if we approve the modification.
So why don't we say it's in compliance?
I'd like to make some comments on some things like when I get from everybody's, when it's my turn again.
Can I ask a question about the motion? The motion going to say that it can be no higher than 6'4"? We're gonna set a parameter, or are we gonna say the motion is that it's as long as it's under 7 feet? Which is.
Well, I think, and I could be wrong, Bill, I will say this, I think we're mixing things. Okay, so you're saying the town saying 7 feet's the standard, but in the Historic District Commission, we have the right to issue COAs as we see appropriate. I mean,
The only guidance to height that we have is that fences in the front of a property should not be higher than 4 feet. That's the only guidance. we have.
so one thing I'm gonna make is a journal comment. You know, I've heard, well, what if this town's gonna get sued? Our purview is not to decide whether the town's gonna get sued or not. Our purview is not to be concerned whether the town is going to get sued or not. Our purview is we have a handbook and a set of rules. We follow that. The town gets sued, the town gets sued. I mean, I hate to be so flip about it, but that's really, I'm not gonna make a decision based on whether I'm worried the town's gonna get sued. My decision will be based on, am I doing the right thing given the rules we have? So to hear that, I think that's.
I agree.
I think that's-
I retract that. I think I'm making a decision based on common sense.
You know, and I'm sure to Mary upset I bring it up, because I bring up a lot. We just approved the metal fence for a guy that we made him tear down his garage over inches. And now we're saying a fence is okay over inches. So at what point is it capricious? Is it, well, that's okay and that's not, or is it based on the person? Or is it based on the neighborhood? Again, that's why I think words matter and definitions matter. I mean, you want to talk about expense. What did it cost my car to tear his garage down? Tens of thousands of dollars. That was okay, but now a fence offends us.
RDC decided on his own.
Okay, but you get my point. So I mean, you know, at some point there's got to be some consistency and the ceiling's for a 6-foot fence. But to me, that's it. It's over 6 feet. It's not compliant.
It wasn't specific enough. The town was 7 feet and the Historic District Commission handbook does not guide us.
Then shame on us for not making that specific enough.
So
I mean, you weren't here, you were part of the vote. I was, I'll put that on my shoulders.
correct. And as I told you, I think town staff at the time should have asked for photographs or documentation.
They should have, and then they should have got the sign right. They didn't get that right. So I mean, you know,
I agree.
I don't know. We're volunteers, they're paid. At some point, they need to take some responsibility on this.
And I will reword my motion that I move to approve. So long as it is under the zoning plan regulation 7 and constructed as it is.
Second, Brady.
All in favor?
Goodrich, no.
Brady. Aye.
Goodman, aye.
Ferguson, I. Could you tell me again what you just said?
The fence is to be modified so that it is no higher than 7 feet for the town zoning regulations and constructed as it is today. So it puts it back in the rest.
Did you get all that, Scott? Aye.
HDC 23-002 is approved. All right, HDC 23-0005 46 Pearl Street. This is the 48-inch metal fence. Sorry.
Sharon's.
I will make a motion to approve. You want to put any restrictions on this?
I think if we learned anything from this fence, it's got to be 48-inch panels with a height no more than, you can put that in.
Do you want to give it 6 inches? Is that?
You leave it, that's up to you.
Okay, so I would make a motion to approve 48-inch panels, no higher than 54 inches
Off the ground.
off the ground.
Think you can get that? I second that. If it wasn't seconded already.
Thank you. Keatsman second, all in favor?
Goodrich, aye.
Brady, aye.
Goodman, aye.
Ferguson, I.
Keatsman, I.
HTC 23-005 is approved. HTC 23-0006 approved. Okay.
You can if you want. I'm just saying.
23 Library Street, this is the garage chambers.
Well, that's the same footprint going from the
Greek revival.
Greek revival. I make a motion to approve.
Goodrich, second.
All in favor?
Goodrich, aye.
Brady, aye.
Goodman, I think it matches.
Ferguson, I think it's an improvement as well.
Keatsman, I.
HTC 23-006 is approved. HTC 23-0007 148 High Street. This is the change from cedar, from stone veneer to cedar shake. I will make a motion to approve. I think it is more in line with the current house.
Second, Brady.
All in favor?
Goodrich, aye for the reasons stated by Goodman.
Brady, aye.
Goodman, aye.
Ferguson, I.
Keatsman, I.
HTC 23-0007 is approved. HTC 23-0008 33 Pearl Street. This is the installation of the Municipal on the southern side of the house. I think it's barely visible, but for the record, I'll make a motion.
Ferguson, second.
All in favor?
Goodrich, aye.
Brady.
Goodman, aye.
Ferguson, I think if she had done it, I don't know if any of us would have been. I did. Yeah, I think she did the right thing by coming to us, but if she hadn't, I'm not sure we ever would have seen it.
There you go.
Keatsman, I.
HTC 23-0008 is approved. I don't think we have any pre-apps, do we? I think they all signed.
All the
in
names are
for-
gonna be the people who
Yeah.
yeah.
Anyone online for a pre-application? Okay, we'll move on. Any public communications?
All were based, the ones everything were based on,
On the fence.
21 probably, yes.
Yeah, so the only thing I asked was that any emails just get included in the minutes as an attachment or as an attachment to the meeting, so. It's on there because there's a slew of them. Any other public communications? Approval of minutes from August 1st, 2023.
I move the minutes to be approved as written.
You got it, okay.
As written.
No corrections.
Goodrich, second.
All in favor?
Goodrich, aye.
Brady, aye.
Goodman, aye.
Ferguson, I.
Keatsman, aye.
Any old business? I'm assuming there's no enforcement stuff, this Tom's not here.
Were you allowed to bring up new business?
As soon as he calls me business.
Oh. I didn't know if I.
Oh, there, Bucky.
I didn't know if he called it.
There is no new business, but yeah, we'll go to new business. Oh, there is. So just can't read.
Okay,
Sorry.
no, I just did, we went to enforcement. We went home.
Let's get it back. Oh, sorry.
What was that one?
7. All right. What were you?
I don't know if this is new business. I think this, obviously, lengthy discussion we had tonight has brought up more questions than certain answers, and I'd like to at least you would attempt to go into executive session and hash out some of these questions and answers. And while it might not be a new business, I'd like to at least bring up the point that I think this is a discussion worth having so that we prevent so there's any tension along the, but just like discussion that could be had not in front of the public, and not to hide anything from the public, but just for our own sake to have a discussion on what is a 6-foot fence, what is a 4-foot fence, what it is. Just that's just a targeted example. There could be other things that, because as we're rewriting this document, these are things that I think we should take into consideration as we're rewriting the historic district as these things. And so all I'm saying is my new business is I'd like to have further discussion on this concept, not specifically a fence height, but the concept that was debated.
I think we need to use the handbook rewrite to flush out the answers.
Right.
Okay, you just said in one sentence what I rambled on.
I think that there are two issues. I mean, I agree that we need to agree on this on the rewrite. I also think though, I mean, hey, I get a little passionate up here sometimes. That being said, I respect each and every one of you immensely. And the minute we walk out of here, any passion goes away. So I think it's also good for the public that there be, I'm Ted by this conversation. I think it's great. There's a Ted, there's a Bill, there's an Eric, there's a Todd, and there's me, because we're all different. And everybody in the district's different, everybody in the community is different. I think that needs a really balanced decision-making board. And yeah, so I think, there's two separate things. I think a spirited debate in front of the public is what they deserve, what should happen on some things too.
Yeah, right. And I'm not against the spirit of debate, but I think a spirited debate, and I'll credit Portia for saying it, but I think we all agree, is that there's clear definitions and that we're all debating based on the same definition. And I think that's where things went through last night.
I think a couple of things. I think it's well put. I think we should use the handbook rewrite to flush out those areas. What I will say is that no matter how well we rewrite this, we're still gonna end up with scenarios where something.
If you close up or firm up, they're gonna be another 10 things.
Right. I'd also just say one thing as a contractor. Who's worked on a lot of historic homes in particular too. When you're building these things. When you're building these houses and when they built these houses in the past. It rarely was planned. Especially in the past. So I think that we just need to be careful about if there are areas and things in particular that we really want to push. We need to push them in the other piece. I think we also in the actual rewrite. I think if it's areas that are a little more construction fluid, if that's the right terminology. We just need to be conscious of the fact that there's going to be variations. So I think, getting so technical is very difficult when you're working on houses that are not square. I
Well,
It's my house in violation because it's off of me, but you guys those plans showed on the square, like I.
No, no, no.
Right, and to your point, that's, when you were on the garage, Ted, I think on things like fences that are easily measurable, having that, what we did is smart. I mean, anybody's gonna get on the roof of his house and measure that it's an inch off. I don't think anybody's gonna find that in violation. And I know that's kind of maybe a gray area difference, but yeah, like you said, no house in Mystic that's over 10 years old square in any way.
But also when it's new construction, you get an 8-foot stud.
Right.
It's an 8-foot wall.
Right.
If someone comes back, not to use Mike as an example, Mike did come back with a garage that suddenly grew by 4 to 6 feet. When you're talking about a totally chosen, different design, purpose, intent, and it didn't really fit. Then they go and they build the thing across the street.
Right.
But that being said, at the time, before that house was put up and it was denied because it didn't fit. Right. It wasn't denied because like one window had an extra. I mean, that. Right. So I
was trying to
think
get
your point's very right.
I was trying to get what you said, Eric, and there are nominal sizes in construction, right? Like a 2x4 is not 2x4. If somebody said I'm doing a 2x4 thing and we said, no, it wasn't, that's 1.5 inches. I mean,
Yeah.
it'd be like, what the hell are you guys talking about? Right. And even if whatever they say, then you can get into this, that's what I was kidding with the Brad Warren, like plus there's tolerances on everything. And none of this stuff matters if everybody's good. But what we saw here was they were mad at each other. So they're trying to, get the pound of flesh out of somebody else.
So,
And so that you have to be careful with. Now we're going to adjudicate. Nothing's exactly 6 feet. It's always going to be a little more or a little less because there's a tolerance to everything. And when do you measure it? When they're measuring, is that today? Is it good for the rest of the century?
So unless we get a personal experience here and not get too deep in the weeds, what caused that, and I'll go on the record and say, I've said it to these guys, is our town staff loves to say, nope, that's it. And whenever you back them in a corner, you're going to get that reaction.
Not you.
Not you. You're too new. We like you still. But seriously, I mean,
who said no?
On issues when I first moved back to town, where someone will come up and they're like, nope, you got no recourse. And when you back them in the corner, that's the reaction you're going to get. And unfortunately, right, wrong, or indifferent, she didn't have the chance to speak for or against. And she's been told, sorry, no way, you lost, you're out. And that's going to frustrate everybody. And I've gone through it with not, personal issues I've had with the people in the town. And it's a bad habit. It's a really bad thing that people in this town do. They go, oh, sorry, you're screwed. Tough.
But many of us on this commission have been screwed over by these own regulations. Right. You, myself, I know for sure. And I think we're doing the best. As we work through the process, I think we need to just think about scenarios and whatever. It's not going to be. But if there are points and you really want to push it, an area, like, let's push the area. We try to encapsulate.
And that's what got my passion up, is the fact that this poor woman, I mean, let's be honest, I have a subscription to the day. You know what I use? I get it dropped off once a week printed, which is the Sunday edition. And this man taught me how to make knots out of it for my fireplace, which is all it's really good for. Okay, nobody reads the print edition.
I do every day.
You're a weirdo.
I'm saying,
I'm
no
joking.
name calling, come on.
I'm joking.
I am,
But seriously,
I'm just saying.
seriously, so what got my dander up tonight is this antiquated thing of publishing in the paper that if you're under the age of 80, you don't do, except if you're Bill Ferguson.
You don't read the legal note.
I do not.
Right.
No,
And so we
so
come
I
up,
agree. I'm
we
with you.
come up with the system to have a public notice on the street. And again, no offense, our towns, staff's like, oops, put it up on a Friday, 15 days before, and stick it on the door where you can't read it. Look like a paint swatch on the front door.
But you have to acknowledge, we live in a very imperfect world.
It's also.
And these new systems are brand new. I mean, it's
They're
clear
less
to
than
me
a
now
month
that what
old.
we should provide, those little metal
Yep.
sticks they use for political
Yep.
signs? That should be provided or lent to someone here and have a way to mount that thing on that, and then you can stick it right there.
Yep.
But those kinds of things are just gonna happen. I mean, it's human error, right? I mean, and we're gonna have to work our way through that.
I don't think.
So I don't want to condemn the town staff when it's a brand new policy that's just been done.
No, but I'd also remind us that still our job is to preserve and protect. the district, Not to get involved in arguments between people. It's not to like adjudicate little tiny things.
Well, but to me, it wasn't technical, which is why I quoted from this, Connecticut Market Protection. I think we have that.
I think if you wanted to make that argument when the fence was originally used, I think it's much stronger than making the argument to make the joke.
Fair enough.
All he was saying is go from 6 to 6-1. whatever.
Right,
That's it.
and like I said back then, the reason I felt I made a mistake, I was on the commission, we won't bring up past personalities, but yeah, if I had to do it, I'd do it differently, but I've been in the commission 6 months at that point, and I didn't know what I know now.
But I also think, some of the stuff you were reading, I didn't know where you were going with that. Segue, but when people talk about view ordinances and that kind of thing, you gotta be very, very careful, but it's very dangerous ground. Look at me, I get this marina in downtown Mystic, where there's an undeveloped portion of that, which is development side. When that building goes up, that's gonna block people's view of the river. But, to create a view easement, it almost gets to be taking the property on the part of the person who owns it. Well, I got a nice view now, but this guy wants to build a building. It's gonna block my view, so you gotta be very careful about it in terms of even preserving, because
And also remind you that people that the United States and the property rights are really important to all of us. And it's not our place to get in and prevent someone from doing something that they're allowed to do as a property owner. It infuriates me when the government gets involved in what my rights are.
But
As long as it's within the rules.
If you choose to buy in the historic district, you don't. So I remember when I bought, looking at Gravel Street, they're like, John, you're in the historic district. I'm like, I'm good with that, right? So nobody goes into buying the historic district thinking they're gonna tear it down and build a all glass modern mansion there. I mean, I'm sorry.
To my point, if the rule said no fences over 3 feet picket, 4 feet picket, whatever. And we went and put a 6-foot fence up there, all the right. There's no rules that say. He came and he asked for permission to put up a vinyl fence. We said no. He came back and he asked for permission to put up a wood fence at 6 feet. We all said yes. He came back and he asked for a modification. We said yes. You don't want 6-foot fences, 7-foot fences, 5-foot fences. You don't want any fences. Change the rules. That's it. That's it.
So I just have one more point of new business. Can we ask Port of Call to get that thing down since supposed to be pulled down on May 1st? It's their COVID.
the tiki hut.
The tiki hut in the parking lot.
Yeah, the executive order. Can't have that.
Yes, it's on the side.
Yeah.
It's on the sign.
Okay. And
You can tell us in the take pictures this weekend.
was something supposed to be said about, just the Groton thing?
They're working on that. Scott doesn't, sorry, Scott, doesn't have the enforcement stuff.
Okay. Okay, no, I just, that just.
One of the things too is, I'd like to not for next weekend meeting, because it's just went on for a while, but I think we did really try to take a stab at getting through 2-10 from where we were, which was 1-10. That's a chunk, but it would be great if we could make some progress. So not the 5th meeting, the September 5th, but the following meeting. It'd be great if we could do a Thursday meeting.
September 19th.
Yeah, and just try to chunk through some more stuff.
So not next meeting,
Correct. Yeah.
but the one after that, we'll go back to the handbook.
We have another meeting this month, right?
No.
Okay.
Just first and third. First and third.
So we ended on 1-18. We're gonna jump from 1-18 to 2-10, which again is a little bit of a chunk, but I think a lot of it we can move through. So, and that'll get us approximately halfway through the document. So I think we can knock this out.
So that would be the 19th.
Correct.
The 1-18 and the 2-10, right?
Yep.
1-.
I'm sorry.
1-.
I'm sorry, 1-10 through 2-10. Yeah.
Motion to adjourn?
And Ted, I would just add that with regard to your definition of the construction, including validity of the fences, et cetera. If I put on my attorney's hat, I'm going to